Good day, everyone. Welcome to Deku Universe. Today we are beginning part 1 of What If Deku Was Trapped Inside Undertale's Underground. The fanfiction is created by LastDreamrr on fanfiction.net. Now, let's begin. Izuku Midoriya had a bad day. For some reason, Kakin. Izuku sighed and pushed the thoughts away. Shoulders heavy, he opened the door to the apartment he shared with his mother. "I'm home," he called, wincing at the crack in his voice. From the kitchen entryway, his mother, wearing an apron, greeted him while still mixing a bowl. "Welcome back, sweetie. I'm making katsudan for dinner tonight," she said, looking up with a smile. But her expression quickly shifted to concern. She set the bowl down and walked over to him. "Are you okay, dear?" Izuku forced a shaky smile, though he knew it wouldn't ease her worry. "I'm fine. I just need to unwind after school." He gave her a quick side hug and started down the hall to his room. "Dinner will be ready in a few hours. I just realized we're out of salt, so I'll run to the store," she called after him. He turned and gave her a more genuine smile. "Okay, be safe." In his room, he flicked on the light, only to be met by the bright, oversized face of his idol. A burst of yellow, blue, and red posters nearly blinded him, forcing him to wince and scramble to dim the lights. Normally, seeing his hero would lift his spirits. But today wasn't the day for normal excitement for heroes. Dropping his bag by the door, he slumped into his desk chair, his head resting against the back as memories from earlier played on repeat in his mind. At the end of every school year, students had to give presentations about which high schools they wanted to attend and how their choices would help them achieve their goals. Naturally, Izuku's dream of attending UA was met with scorn, especially from Kakin. "This SHD again, Deku." Katsuki Bakugo sneered, the expression on his face something between a smirk and a snarl. "This is just pathetic. You really think someone like you could do anything worthwhile? You're less than useless garbage." The laughter of his classmates, and even the teacher's lack of intervention, hit him like a punch to the gut. Their words had chipped away at his determination to become a hero. His eyes stung. He squeezed them shut, forcing the tears back. With a deep breath, he sat up straight, brushing the negativity away like cobwebs. Letting out a tired sigh, he turned on his computer and began scrolling through the usual hero platforms, hoping to distract himself by updating his notebooks. But news site after news site offered nothing new. A slow day, not even a new rescue clip to analyze. With a groan, he closed the browser. His desktop wallpaper came into view, a commissioned drawing of All Might's costume evolution. He stared at it, unsure what to do next. Then, almost like fate, his gaze landed on something nestled between the golden bangs of Golden Age All Might. The App Store. With nothing better to do, Izuku opened the app. The homepage was filled with hero fighting games. He'd never really played them. Most were too competitive for his taste. Browsing aimlessly, he opened a filter and searched for non-hero fighting games. The results showed a decent number of titles. Most apps featured the generic face of a main character, with slideshow previews. Many looked like cheap, AI-generated cash grabs. He scrolled past more uninspired games, until one stood out. A lone icon, a pixelated red heart. The slideshow featured only the game's title, Undertale, and its tagline, "A game where nobody has to die." Curious, he tapped the page. It was priced at 700 yen. Shrugging, he bought it. His library now showed just one other game, already downloaded. Surprised, Izuku double-clicked the icon. The screen went black, and a second later, so did his surroundings. Izuku groaned as sunlight pierced his eyelids. Rolling over, he sighed in relief, until he realized this didn't feel like his bed. It felt more like a sleeping bag. Eyes snapping open, he bolted upright, only to lose balance and tumble off what he now saw was a wooden bench, landing face first in the dirt. Literally, wincing, he rolled over and fumbled with the zipper of the sleeping bag until he freed himself. Sitting up, he took in his surroundings. A simple bench, a small backpack beside it, and a dense forest stretching out in every direction, except for a narrow path winding deeper into the woods. "Where am I?" he whispered, heart racing. Did the game do this? His stomach dropped. He checked his pockets. None of his belongings were on him. Rushing to the bag beside the bench, he opened it with trembling hands. It was nearly empty. A bad sign. Inside, he found an old flashlight, a few bandages and alcohol wipes, a folded piece of paper. He unfolded the paper. On one side was a drawing of a white, ghostly flower. Below it, a description. Mana bloom, said to be the last remnant of the monster race. Only blooms in areas with high ambient magic. On the back was a simple map of a mountain, Mount Thabat, with a winding trail and an X mark deep within a range. Still confused and more terrified by the second, Izuku dug through the bag again, hoping to find a phone. Anything, but there was nothing. Tears welled up as he packed everything back into the bag. The map was his only clue. He turned, considering walking down the mountain to find help. Then, out of nowhere, a black and white screen appeared in front of him, accompanied by a cheerful, retro-sounding tune. Play Undertale OST 002, Start menu. Press Start to continue. Izuku stared wide-eyed. He glanced around, searching for a button, then hesitantly tapped the word Start on the screen. It changed. When HP reaches 0, you lose. Begin game? Swallowing hard, Izuku tapped Begin. Name the human. A pixel keyboard popped up. Without much thought, he typed his name, Izuku. Is this name correct? Yes. No. He tapped yes. The screen vanished. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Confused, he turned toward the trail leading down the mountain. But again, the screen appeared. The only way is up. His heart pounded, but there was no choice. Hands shaking, he pulled out the map and started up the mountain trail. As he walked, his thoughts spiraled. Why is this happening? What is this place? Will I ever see my mom again? The last thought cut the deepest, tightening the knot in his stomach. Eventually, he reached a gaping cave entrance in the mountainside. A weather-worn sign stood nearby, adorned with a skull and crossbones. Those who enter the mountain never leave. He gulped. Hard. He took a step back, ready to turn around, but the screen reappeared. Obtained a flower. Fear crept up his spine. Still, he searched the area just outside the cave, hoping to find the mana bloom without going in. Nothing. Tears pricked his eyes again. With no other option, he crossed the threshold into the cave, flashlight in hand. The air was cool and damp. The ground felt uneven beneath his feet, slick with moisture. The deeper he went, the dimmer the light became. He waved the flashlight in a shaky arc, trying to steady his breathing. Then, a flicker of color. At the very end of the tunnel, illuminated by the beam, stood a single glowing flower. It was exactly like the one in the drawing. Mana bloom. Relief washed over him. He rushed forward, ready to grab it and end this strange ordeal. But in his excitement, he forgot the unstable ground. His foot slipped. Instead of pain, there was weightlessness. He was falling fast. A scream tore from his throat as the cave entrance disappeared above him. The last thing he saw before everything went black. Izuku was getting tired of waking up in strange places, though this time he was just glad to wake up at all. He moved slowly, bracing for pain in some part of his body. But to his surprise and relief, nothing felt bruised, let alone broken. Finally opening his eyes, he found himself in a surprisingly well-lit room. A bed of golden flowers cradled him gently, and sunlight poured through the hole he'd fallen from above. He blinked. Wait, how is sunlight even reaching down here so well? A little annoyed, he muttered, I couldn't even see in that cave. Sighing, he sat up. A hallway stretched before him, softly lit with glowing white lamps. Gathering himself, he followed the path. At the end was a stylized stone archway that led into another room, also lit by sunlight, and in its center, a lone flower basking in the light. As he walked closer, he froze. The flower had a face. Howdy, Izuku yelped and stumbled back in shock. I'm Flowey. Flowey the flower. What's your name? Izuku, he stammered. Flowey tilted his head. Is that a question or an answer? He asked with a cheerful, almost cute expression. Izuku gathered his composure. My name is Izuku. Midoriya Izuku. Flowey nodded. I see, Izuku. You're new around here, aren't ya? Izuku nodded vigorously. Yes. Can you help me? I want to get home. Floey smiled. Sure. What are friends for? He said brightly. But there are a few rules down here you'll need to follow. Lucky for you, your new friend Floey is here to help. Ready? Izuku nodded again. Then here we go. Suddenly, the air shifted. Izuku gasped as he felt something pull at his chest. Looking down, he saw a small red heart hovering in front of him. See that heart? Floey said. That's your soul. It's the very culmination of your being. Panicked, Izuku frantically tried to push the heart back into his body. What's happening? Am I going to die? Floey chuckled. A vine patted Izuku's back. Relax, bud. This is just what happens when a human confronts a monster down here. All souls show themselves. They start weak, but can grow stronger with lots of LV. Izuku took a breath, now fascinated. Is it like a quirk? Floey blinked. I don't know what a quirk is. This is magic. Monsters use it when they fight. Some attacks hurt the soul, others help it. So can even heal. Want to get a little stronger? Izuku nodded eagerly, fingers twitching from the urge to take notes. Alrighty. Floey cheered, spinning as white petals burst from his face. These are my friendliness pellets. If your soul touches them, you'll gain some LV. And what does LV stand for, you ask? He grinned. Why, love, of course. Izuku smiled faintly, but a tiny knot of discomfort twisted in his stomach. Something doesn't feel right. Okay, get ready and catch as many as you can. Trusting Floey, Izuku let the petals hit his soul. Pain exploded through his chest. He screamed and collapsed, clutching his body as the white pellets burned into him. Floey's cheerful giggle morphed into manic laughter. I can't believe a human could be this stupid, he shrieked. Why would anyone pass up an opportunity like this? Izuku looked up, eyes wide with tears, only to find himself trapped. Vines wrapped around his arms and legs, thorns digging into his skin. BLD trickled down his forearms as he was splayed out on the ground, his glowing red soul exposed and surrounded by petals. Die! No! Izuku screamed, straining against the pain and bindings, willing himself to fight. Suddenly, a flash of light. A white fireball blasted across the room, slamming into Floey and flinging him into the previous hallway, scorched and yowling. Izuku scrambled into a corner, trembling. In a panic, he curled in on himself, holding his injured arms over his chest as protection. "Oh, my goodness," came a soft, feminine voice. He flinched. A tall, goat-like woman rushed to his side, her eyes wide with worry. "Are you all right, little one?" Izuku peeked through his arms. The pain lessened, but his body still trembling. The woman loomed above him, concern etched deep into her face, not the malice he had felt from Floey. She knelt. "This is vile. How could anyone do such a thing to a child?" She gently pulled his arms forward, grimacing at the BLD and tears on his face. "Of course you're not all right," she muttered to herself. "Here, if you can hold still for a moment, I'll heal you." She stepped back and brought her hands together, forming a small green flame with a black core between her palms. Izuku's eyes widened in awe. She knelt again and pressed the flame gently to his wounds. Warmth spread through his body as the pain vanished and the cuts closed, leaving no scars behind. He ran a hand over his now-healed skin, blinking in amazement. Timidly, he looked up at her. "Thank you." She smiled warmly. "Are you well enough to stand?" Izuku wiped his face and slowly stood, only reaching her waist. "Wonderful, dear. May I know your name?" "I am Toriel, the caretaker of these ruins." Izuku straightened. "Yeah, my name is Izuku. I fell here a little while ago. Can you help me get out of here?" Toriel stiffened slightly at Izuku's question. "Why don't I bring you to my home? There, you may rest and have some food." Izuku nodded, realizing just then how hungry he was. "Splendid. Come this way, dear child," Toriel said, walking through another stylized stone archway. As they stepped through, Izuku was greeted by a large hall built of stone bricks, lit by purple lanterns lining the walls. Looking at Toriel, then at his hands, he realized the purple glow wasn't the color of the bricks. It just tinted everything in the room. As he walked, A faint tune seemed to hum just out of reach. Play Undertale's soundtrack, Ruins. Following Toriel up a flight of stairs, Izuku noticed a yellow star nearby, pulsating rhythmically, expanding and contracting. Miss Toriel, what's that?" he called out. Toriel looked over her shoulder. "Oh, that's just a pile of leaves, little one. I know it's a bit messy, but I'll get around to tidying up after you've settled in." Izuku, not wanting to trouble her further, kept quiet and followed her up the stairs. "Welcome, young Izuku, to the ruins," Toriel declared. "Allow me to educate you on its operations." She stepped on a few floor buttons as she spoke. "You see, the ruins are full of traps and puzzles, meant to keep its inhabitants safe and sharp-minded. To progress, you'll need to hone your wits and solve these trials." She pulled a lever, opening a nearby door. "Come now. I want you to solve the next room's puzzle," she said, stepping through. Before leaving, Izuku read a sign aloud. "Only the fearless may proceed. Brave ones, foolish ones. Both walk, not the middle road." He glanced at the puzzle, understanding its message, and continued forward. "In this room, you'll need to pull several switches," Toriel explained. "Don't worry, I've marked them for you. Please take your time. I'll be waiting at the end of the room." Izuku explored on his own, starting by reading the first sign. To read signs, make sure you open your eyes. "Sign to sign guy." He deadpanned. "Really?" Wandering off the path, he found another sign on the wall. "Stay on the path." "Seriously?" As he walked down the hall, he spotted a SWCH on the wall, highlighted and surrounded by arrows. "Please flip this SWCH." Signed, Toriel. He flipped it, hearing a satisfying clack in the walls. A little farther along were two more switches. One was as obviously marked as before. "This one too." Toriel. Flipping the second SWCH, he was met with a chorus of clinks, clanks, and grinding as the spikes near the exit retracted. "Splendid, my child," Toriel praised, clapping her hands. "Let's move on to the next room." In the next room, Toriel gently placed her hand on Izuku's shoulder and guided him toward a practice dummy. "Down here, many monsters don't look at humans favorably. Some may wish to harm you." Izuku shivered at the reminder. "However," she continued, "most monsters can be placated if you simply talk to them. Try it out on this dummy." Izuku felt the air shift again, this time far less violently than with Flowey. Shy and a bit embarrassed to be talking to a lifeless object, he stammered out a quiet, "H-hi." Seconds passed in silence. Toriel gave him a gentle smile. "I guess you're not much of a talker." "Huh? That's all right. You did wonderfully for your first try." Izuku's cheeks burned with embarrassment, but the praise still warmed him inside. They continued to the next room. "There's a puzzle here," Toriel said. "Would you like to try and solve it?" Izuku nodded confidently as they approached. Falling slightly behind, he suddenly felt the air grow heavy. A frog-like monster hopped out of a hole in the wall. Izuku panicked. "What do I do? I don't know anything about it." A panel appeared in his vision, not as overwhelming as before, but like a HUD floating before his eyes. "Fight. Act. Item. Mercy." Before he could react, Toriel stepped in from around the corner, putting herself between Izuku and the monster. Whatever she did, the monster, apparently called a frogget, stumbled back, pale-faced, and fled. Toriel sighed and turned to Izuku. "Are you all right, little one?" Izuku, still shaken, nodded, and they continued on in silence. They passed a sign, which Izuku read aloud. "The Western Room is the Eastern Room's blueprint." Pondering its meaning, Izuku accidentally bumped into Toriel's back. "Why?" he yelped. Before he could fall, Toriel caught him quickly, relief washing over her face. "Please be careful, my child. I wouldn't want you to get hurt." Izuku nodded sheepishly, glancing around her to see the next room, a floor full of spikes. He paled. Toriel laughed nervously at his expression. "Ah, this is the next room, but would you take my hand for a moment?" Izuku slipped his hand into hers, curious but cautious. As she stepped onto what looked like deadly spikes, he gasped in horror, instinctively trying to pull her back. "Oh, it's all right, child," she reassured. "I've walked this spike maze many times over the years. You have nothing to worry about." She pressed down with her foot, and instead of piercing her, the spikes retracted one by one as she walked, pulling Izuku gently along. Izuku held his breath the entire way, bracing for the worst, but the pain never came. By the time they reached the end of the maze, he gasped for air, a little lightheaded from holding his breath so long. "Please don't make me do that again," he begged, still trembling slightly. "Understandable, my child," Toriel soothed. "I had a difficult time walking through the ruins my first time, too. But don't worry, there are no more spike puzzles from here on." Izuku sighed in deep relief as she led him into the next room. Entering the next room, Izuku saw a long hallway. As they traversed it, Toriel hummed along with the quiet tunes still playing in the background. "Miss Toriel?" Izuku asked. Do you know where that music is coming from? And what's up with the music?" Toriel hummed thoughtfully before her eyes lit up in realization. "Oh, are you talking about the room themes?" Izuku nodded. "Well, it's been a while since I got the explanation, but I think it has something to do with how magic reacts to the environment. I'm sorry I can't give a better answer." Izuku smiled, his hand twitching as if reaching for something to write with. "It's okay. When we get to your house, could I have a notebook and pencil?" "Of course," she said, stopping before the next room. "Listen, Izuku, I need you to stay here for a while. I still have some duties I must attend to. Will you be okay waiting here?" Izuku glanced around the room, contemplating. "That's okay. All right. Here, take this old cell phone. Use it if you need anything or if I take too long. I'll be back in a bit," she promised, jogging into the next room. 30 minutes later, Izuku sat against a pillar, bored out of his mind. His calls with Toriel had been nice, until he heard her phone get snatched by a dog. Redialing her number, he heard someone pick up, only to be greeted by panting and Toriel's voice pleading in the background for the phone back. He stared into the next room, a thoughtful look in his eyes. After a moment, he decided he'd explore the rest of the ruins on his own. Stepping forward, he flinched when he spotted the frogget from earlier. "Ribbit!" It croaked in confusion. Realizing he hadn't been attacked, Izuku cautiously approached. "Ribbit, Ribbit!" it said as a screen popped up beneath it. "Sorry I attacked you earlier. You startled me. I've got some advice if you're willing to listen. If you act a certain way, or fight until you almost defeat your opponent, they might not want to fight anymore. If a monster doesn't want to fight, please use some mercy. Ribbit." "It's okay. Thanks for the advice," Izuku replied, smiling. Past the frogget, he noticed another glowing yellow star. Crunching through the leaves, he approached it. This time, he cautiously reached out, ready to pull back if it hurt, and touched it. The familiar black and white panel popped up again. "Crinkling through the leaves fills you with determination. HP fully restored." He felt energy pulse through him, a flicker of red catching in the corner of his eye. As the sensation faded, a new prompt appeared. "Save load." He pressed save. The text turned yellow, a chime played, and the panel disappeared. Looking down the hall, he continued forward, only to be attacked by another frogget. He felt the familiar shift in the air as his soul became visible. Frogget attacks. Fight act item mercy. He focused on act, which opened another menu. Check compliment threaten. He quickly glanced over the frogget. You have nice eyes." The frogget looked confused for a moment, then blushed. Despite the compliment, it spat out fly-shaped bullets, each one dive-bombing Izuku. He clumsily wove between them until none remained. Panting slightly, Izuku noticed the frogget's name was now yellow. Taking a chance, he selected spare. The air lightened as the frogget hopped away, still blushing faintly. Sighing in relief, Izuku moved to the next room. But as he walked down the hallway, the floor suddenly gave out beneath him. "Wah!" he yelled, landing with an oof in a pile of leaves. "Oh man, I don't know if my heart can take any more of this," he muttered, clutching his chest in relief. Looking around, he found a door leading out of the pit. Climbing the ladder, he returned to the upper floor on the other side of the weakened floor. Continuing on, his phone rang. Click. He heard heavy panting on the other end, along with what sounded like rapid footsteps and frustrated yelling in the background. Grimacing sympathetically, he hung up and scanned the room. A sign on the wall read, 3 out of 4 rocks recommend you push them. Izuku spotted the lone rock and the pressure plate nearby. Shrugging mentally, he pushed the surprisingly light rock onto the plate. Click! The spikes retracted. Nice, he thought, heading into the next room. Beyond the wall, he noticed worn, cracked floor tiles and a hole with a ladder leading down. Steeling himself, he stepped onto a tile, only to immediately fall through, landing in another pile of leaves. Dusting himself off, he noticed a leaf path on the floor and a sign. Please don't step on the leaves. Rubbing his chin thoughtfully, he nodded as realization struck. Studying the path and the room's layout, he retraced his steps, attempting the puzzle again. After a few tries, he finally reached the leaves at the top floor. Didn't you read the sign downstairs? He stared at the sign's placement and frowned. I hope these signs are just being funny, he grumbled, shaking his head. Yes, he cheered, finally completing the room and hurrying forward, only to trip over some jiggling blobs. Moldsmal blocks the way. Picking himself up, he noticed their names were already yellow. He quickly spared them and continued on. The next room had more rock switches and a spike bridge. Without thinking much, he began pushing rocks onto the plates, until a voice startled him. Whoa, hey, you can't just push me around like that. Izuku yelped, withdrawing his hands and bowing apologetically. I'm so sorry. I thought you were just another rock. The rock huffed. Well, I ain't. What in tarnation were you trying to do, anyway? Remembering the puzzle, Izuku asked sheepishly, could you move onto that plate over there? Okay, just for you, kid. The rock rumbled, sliding onto the plate with effort. The spikes retracted. Thank you, Izuku called as he crossed the bridge. On the other side, he encountered a tiny ghost hovering over a mat. You walk into Whimsun's path. Realizing his mistake, he moved to apologize, but before he could say a word, Whimsun burst into tears and fled. Feeling guilty, Izuku lowered his head and continued on. The hallway led to a save point beside a table. Inspecting the cheese on the table, he tried to pick it up, only to realize it was stuck. Behind him, he noticed a mouse scurry into a tiny hole in the wall. He smiled and touched the save point. Knowing the mouse might one day unstick the cheese and take it home fills you with determination. Deku looked at the ghost, repeatedly saying Z out loud, pretending to sleep. Excuse me, sir? I just need to get past you here, he said, tiptoeing around the figure, unfortunately waking it up. The pressure of battle set in as Izuku tried apologizing to the ghost. He bowed repeatedly in remorse, but this only seemed to worsen the ghost's mood. I'm not deserving of your apologies. I'm sorry, it cried, unintentionally flicking acidic tears at Izuku. Izuku dodged, pulling up his panel and seeing the options. Napstablook is in tears. Check flirt threatened cheer. His sweat dropped at the options, particularly confused by the flirt one. Hoping to calm the ghost, he selected cheer and tried to figure out what that actually meant. Seeing Napstablook's eyes welling up with more tears, the only thing Izuku could think of was offering a soft, gentle smile. The corner of Napstablook's mouth twitched upward for a second, but still the tears fell. Dodging the ghost's constant movement began to tire Izuku. A stray tear grazed his forearm with a sharp hiss, evaporating into vapor and leaving a red splotch. -1 HP. Surprised it didn't hurt more, Izuku took a second to act again and gave a brighter smile. Napstablook chuckled weakly. Fewer tears fell, making it easier to dodge. Seeing his reaction improve, Izuku gave it everything he had, smiling as brightly as he could. It wasn't quite an All Might smile, but it was close. Napstablook looked far happier now, though still a bit nervous. He floated in place, then turned to Izuku. Hey, would you mind giving me your opinion on something I've been working on? Izuku nodded eagerly. Sure. Napstablook began to cry again, but this time the tears swirled into shape, forming a dapper hat, a ghostly tuxedo, and a floating monocle. I call this Max Dapperblook. Do you like it? Izuku's eyes lit up. That's amazing. You made that yourself? He asked excitedly. You look incredible, and you can make that whenever you want. Napstablook blushed. Oh wow. The pressure in the air lifted. I usually come to the ruins because no one's around, but you're someone nice. Napstablook gave Izuku a small, genuine smile. Thank you, stranger. Izuku nodded warmly as the ghost hovered there for a minute. But things quickly grew awkward. Looking around uncomfortably, Napstablook realized he was still blocking the way. Oh, I'm sorry. I was in your way, he said, floating aside. Sorry for being a bother. Izuku watched him drift away, then inspected his arm. The red skin tingled, sensitive to the touch. He grabbed an alcohol pad, disinfected the burn, and wrapped it with a bandage from his bag before moving on. Past what looked like the main hallway, he entered a room filled with spider webs and a sign in the corner. Spider bake sale. Buy from spiders. 4 spiders of spiders 0.5G. Spider donut 12G. Spider cider. Izuku, weirded out, instinctively patted his pockets, despite knowing he had no money. To his surprise, his hand brushed against a pouch strapped to his bag. Opening it, he found 45G inside. Where did I even get this? He muttered, shaking his head. Confused but curious, he stepped near the web and placed 5G on the ground. A giant spider crawled out with a donut between its legs. The moment Izuku laid eyes on the massive arachnid, his newfound arachnophobia kicked in. With a horrified yelp, he bolted from the room, leaving behind the spider, the donut, and any sense of dignity. Dashing past some wandering froggets, Izuku collided with something solid, sending them both sprawling across the floor. Feeling that all too familiar pressure settle in again, Izuku scrambled upright, ready to apologize, until he saw a large, glaring eyeball staring back at him. You stumbled into Lux. Why are you picking on me? Lux shouted, spawning rings of energy around Izuku. I'm so sorry, he blurted. I didn't see you there. Lux paused, calming a bit. So, you weren't picking on me? No, I wasn't. I wasn't looking where I was going. I'm really sorry. Izuku bowed repeatedly. Lux stared at him, contemplative, then gave a small nod and walked off. Dusting himself off, Izuku looked around. Cracked floors and ceiling vents suggested this was a 2-story room. Sighing in acceptance, he braced himself for the inevitable fall. Looking around, he spotted a tattered cloth on the floor. Faded ribbon DF3. He tied it around his arm for added protection. Faded ribbon equipped. Climbing back through the vent, he pressed on. The next 2 rooms were uneventful. In the third, he encountered Napstablook again, who gave him a hint about a puzzle. Finally, in the last room he fell into, he found the SWCH and a strange lump in the floor. As he stepped over the mound, a carrot-shaped creature burst from the ground. Vegetoid ambushed you. Izuku recoiled at its jack-o'-lantern-like face, shivering slightly. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him he hadn't eaten since arriving. Noticing this, Vegetoid grinned wide. Make sure you eat your greens, it cackled. Vegetables bounced into the room. Some were normal, but others glowed bright green. Testing a theory, Izuku timed his movements and caught one of the glowing greens. The moment it touched his hand, it dissolved into light and was absorbed into his body. HP fully restored. Part of a balanced meal, Vegetoid declared proudly before burrowing back into the ground. Izuku flipped the SWCH and heard a familiar click in the walls. Grinning, he dusted himself off and continued forward. Izuku was running on fumes. The last room had sapped a good amount of his remaining energy. As he entered the next puzzle room, he sighed and trudged along, flicking the necessary switches in order. Reading the next sign, he felt a small wave of frustration. These puzzles were becoming increasingly convoluted. Remembering SWCH orientations and their colors was starting to wear on him. Finally, the familiar clicks of retracting spikes signaled the puzzle's completion. He breathed a small sigh of relief and exited the room, hopeful that Toriel's home was nearby. As he reached a hall intersection, he spotted a familiar decorated corridor, and his heart swelled with relief. Jogging lightly, he stopped in front of a dead-looking tree, finally allowing himself a moment of rest. Slumping to the ground, he leaned back against the trunk, his bag on his lap serving as a makeshift pillow. His eyes began to drift shut. Ring, ring. Startled from his doze, he fumbled for his phone, only to pause as Toriel appeared from around the tree. "Oh, goodness. Are you okay, my child?" she asked, hurrying to check on him. Seeing the bandages, she gently began to undo them. "I'm fine, Miss Toriel," Izuku said, still slightly drowsy. "I was just feeling a little tired from everything that's happened." Toriel examined his injuries with a concerned hum. "Nothing too serious," she mumbled, reapplying the bandages with care. "Still, it was irresponsible of me to leave you alone for something as silly as a surprise." Izuku perked up. "A surprise?" he asked curiously. Toriel froze for a moment, then chuckled sheepishly. "Ah, well, I suppose it's too late to keep it a secret now. Come, follow me." She turned and walked toward the door. Just beside it was another save point. Feeling the warmth of Toriel's home through the door reminds you of the comfort of your own. Your determination is strengthened. HP fully restored. Stepping inside, Izuku was immediately greeted by the sound of a party blower. "Surprise! Welcome to my home." Toriel cheered, arms spread wide. "This is where you'll be staying." She gently took Izuku's hand and led him toward a cozy room. "Feel free to rest, my child. I know you've been through quite a bit. When you awaken, I'll fix you something warm to eat." She patted his head tenderly, and Izuku, still drowsy, unconsciously leaned into the touch. Toriel sniffed the air, her expression shifting. "Oh dear, the pie," she said suddenly, rushing into the kitchen. Left alone, Izuku explored a bit. Down the hallway, he found a bathroom and gratefully took the opportunity to wash away the day's sweat and grime. The warm water helped relax his sore muscles. When he stepped out of the shower, he noticed a set of soft sleepwear folded on the toilet seat, and his clothes missing. He smiled faintly, guessing Toriel had taken them to be washed. Wearing the provided sleepwear, he stepped into the bedroom she'd prepared. The space had clearly once belonged to a child. Curious, he looked around. A toy chest sat in the corner, filled with slightly dusty toys. A closet full of green and yellow striped shirts lined one wall. On top of the dresser was a framed photo. He picked it up. A goat child stood beside a human child, one that looked remarkably like him. He stared. The human's hair covered their eyes, casting most of their face in shadow, but everything else, the build, the clothes, even the posture, felt eerily familiar. The only real difference was their solid black hair. A shiver ran down his spine. Realizing the implications, Izuku carefully set the photo back down. But exhaustion was finally catching up with him. "I'll think about it tomorrow," he whispered to himself. He turned off the light, slipped under the covers, and let the comforting stillness of Toriel's home lull him to sleep. A soft, soothing melody echoed in the background. And finally, sleep took him. Click. Tonight on MV News. Cases of people being found unconscious in their homes continue to pour in. All around the globe, thousands, primarily middle school to college-aged, are being admitted to hospitals in what appears to be a mass tragedy. While no concrete information has been confirmed about the cause of these mysterious instant comas, some reports from friends of the victims indicate a common thread. They were seen purchasing a video game shortly before losing consciousness. We advise everyone to avoid online stores where games may be purchased. This includes Steam, Xstation, Scratch, and all mobile app stores until further notice. Click. Izuku Midoriya sighed, her brows furrowed in worry and frustration at the lack of new information. It had only been a day since it happened, but her mind had already imagined every worst-case scenario. She still couldn't shake the fear from when she first found her son. Flashback. "Honey, dinner's ready." Izuku called down the hallway. No answer. "Sweetie, we've got to hurry before the katsudan gets cold," she called again, louder this time. Still nothing. Wiping her hands and taking off her apron, she walked to Izuku's room, knocking softly. "Izuku." No response, only the faint sound of static. Her heart jumped in her throat. She twisted the knob and opened the door, her stomach dropping at the sight. Izuku lay crumpled on the floor in front of his desk, his keyboard lying over him. His computer monitor displayed pure static, like one of those ancient TVs from the pre-Quark era. Her body moved on instinct. One hand was already pressing the emergency call buttons to the hospital where she worked, while the other checked for vitals. Stable, but unresponsive. She applied a sternal rub to try to rouse him. Nothing. Panicking, she pressed harder, desperate for any kind of reaction. Her mind raced with what medical training she had, but none of it prepared her for this. Panic directed at her only living family left. All she could do was keep him comfortable until help arrived. Back in the present, Inko looked down at her phone. She opened Izuku's old Ice Steam library, the one she had set up for him when he was younger. For years, it had remained nearly empty, save for a few hero fighter games he used to play with Katsuki. Until last night. There, at the top of the library, was a new purchase, Undertale. Knock, knock, knock. Come in, Inko called gently. A man stepped in. Ms. Midoriya, correct? He asked. She nodded. My name is Detective Naomasa Tsukauchi. I'd like to ask you some questions about the night you found your son. God DMNIT. A scarred man screamed at the TV screen, veins bulging in his neck. Oh, come on, man. If you're going to be this salty, maybe stick to casual matches, came a voice from his headset. Shut the hell up, you dim-in cheat. The man roared, clawing furiously at his neck, scraping it raw. Whatever, dude. Delete the game if you can't handle a pro, the voice taunted smugly. Reaha! With a snap, his controller turned to dust in his hands. In a blind rage, he tore off his headset, which disintegrated on contact. He stomped over to the punching bag in the corner of the room, unleashing a flurry of blows on it. His breathing heaved, his knuckles bled. With a final, thunderous slap, he slammed both hands into the bag, and it too dissolved into dust. Panting heavily, he stood in silence. Once the adrenaline faded, he moved to his closet and unboxed a brand new controller. The last one Sensei gave me, he thought bitterly. I can't break this one too. He plugged it into his X station and opened the settings. After a moment's hesitation, he hovered over the game's icon, then hit delete. The screen went black. He sat, stewing in silence, frustration boiling in his chest. Opening the Play Store to look for a new game, one description caught his eye. Not the icon, but the words underneath. Where nobody has to die. His finger hovered, then clicked. Elsewhere, a figure watched with growing excitement. As more and more people downloaded his game, his grin widened. Legs bouncing, eyes sparkling, he opened a new screen, monitoring the green-haired boy now peacefully sleeping in a bed, and the scarred man sauntering along a hall covered in dust, a wicked gleam in his eyes. This will be a dream to remember. Play Undertale OST. Home. Izuku awoke gently to the soft, comforting melody playing in the background. Music that seemed to echo the warmth of a true home. Stretching in bed and inhaling deeply, he caught the mouth-watering scent of something delicious in the air. Sitting up, he glanced around the cozy room and spotted a slice of pie on the dresser, accompanied by a handwritten note. This is butterscotch cinnamon pie. If you have any allergies, please bring it back to me so I can make you something you'll enjoy. Toriel. Izuku smiled at the thoughtfulness. His stomach growled in response. Picking up the pie, he took a bite and immediately swooned, cheeks puffed with sweet, heavenly goodness. It felt like time stood still as he savored the moment. Finally swallowing, Izuku let out a satisfied sigh, stretched once more, and yawned. Noticing his bag nearby, he saw his clothes neatly folded beside it. After changing, he stepped into the hallway, eventually finding himself in a warm living area. There, Toriel sat in a large rocking chair, gently swaying as she read a book. Good morning, Miss Toriel, Izuku greeted politely. Toriel looked up, her face lighting with a wide smile. Good morning, my child, she said, setting the book down. Did you sleep well? Izuku nodded. Thank you for the pie. It really hit the spot, he said, rubbing his full stomach. Toriel tilted her head thoughtfully. So, do you want anything else to eat? Izuku shook his head and gave a respectful bow. No, thank you. I still need to get home, and I wouldn't want to overstay my welcome. Her expression faltered. Go home? See, can't you stay just a little longer? The ruins still hold many secrets, things you could learn, explore. Izuku's face tightened with discomfort. I'm sorry. I really do need to go home. He took a step back. Could you please tell me where the exit is? Toriel's face went blank. Without another word, she stood up and quickly walked past him. I need to take care of something. Please wait here, she said, her voice unusually firm. Hey, wait, Izuku called, reaching out, too late. His fingers missed the edge of her robe. Steadying himself, he chased after her, reaching the entrance just in time to see her head disappearing down a staircase. He followed, catching up in a dim hallway. You wish to return home, do you not? She asked without turning. Farther down this hallway lies the exit to the ruins, the only path to the rest of the underground. She paused. I'm going to destroy it. No one will be able to leave again. Izuku's heart skipped a beat at the certainty in her voice. Please, she added, still walking, be a good child and go upstairs. But Izuku kept following. There were 6 humans before you, she continued. All of them children, confused, scared, alone. But they shared one thing. They all wanted to leave. She stopped briefly. All of them died. Izuku's eyes widened, fear and disbelief washing over him. Do you understand now, child? Toriel said softly. If you leave, the monsters beyond won't show you the same kindness you've known here. The ones under him, under Askari, will kill you without hesitation. Izuku stood frozen in place, cold dread seeping into his chest. But then, something inside him surged, a warmth that pushed back against the fear, burning brightly. His eyes glowed with emerald green and a fierce red ring of fire around the pupils. He ran to catch up with her. Turning the corner, he heard her voice again, calmer but firm. Do not try to stop me, child. This is your final warning. Still, he pressed on. Why won't you listen to me? She asked, disappointment lacing her words. You're just like the others. She sighed. If you truly want to leave this place, there's only one way to convince me. Toriel turned to face him. Her eyes were cold. Prove yourself. Prove to me you can survive him. Play Undertale OST. Heartache. A heavy pressure filled the hallway, far greater than anything Floey had conjured. The colors around them faded to stark black and white. The familiar battle interface appeared, hovering over Izuku's left eye, adapting to him. He didn't even consider choosing fight. Toriel, I need to get past you. I promise, I won't die, he pleaded. But her expression remained unchanged. Raising her hands, she summoned black and white flames and hurled them in elegant arcs toward him. Relying on his combat training, Izuku dodged gracefully. I know I could never fully understand what you've been through, he said, leaping away from a fireball that singed the air beside him. But keeping me here won't make me happy. Toriel's calm began to crack. What are you doing? Fight back, she shouted, summoning 2 massive fireballs that slammed together, sandwiching him between bursts of fast, difficult-to-dodge pellets. The flames singed his exposed limbs, more of a sting than real harm. But the ones that struck his soul, those hurt. Still, Izuku refused to retaliate. His eyes burned brighter, his movement sharper, his resolve unwavering. He would reach her, not through force, but through his determination. Toriel cried, her voice cracking. Don't you want to survive? Don't you want to leave? If you don't fight, you'll eventually die. Not all monsters can be swayed with words. She barely finished her sentence before gathering flame between her hands. With a sweep, she sprayed a jet of fire across half the room, forcing Izuku to leap aside. No sooner had he landed than she prepared the same attack on the opposite side. I'm not going to sacrifice my morals just to leave, Izuku shouted, fire in his voice now too. How could I ever look my mother in the eyes knowing I hurt someone who helped me when I needed it most, someone who's still trying to protect me? Toriel faltered. The flame between her palms sputtered out. Caught off guard, she launched a volley of smaller fireballs, but her heart wasn't in it anymore. The precision and force behind her magic began to waver. You showed me kindness when you didn't have to, Izuku continued, dodging with ease now. You gave me a warm bed, food, you watched over me like a mother would. Toriel's arms began to tremble. Her fire flickered, weakening with every step Izuku took toward her. Even now, he said gently, reaching out and taking her hands, you want what's best for me. Toriel's shoulders shook. Then, unexpectedly, she began to laugh, tears spilling down her furry cheeks. Play Undertale, OST. Fallen down. I'm so pathetic, aren't I? She whispered, wiping her face with her sleeve. I couldn't even stop a single child. Izuku hugged her. It wasn't something he planned, just felt right. The gesture silenced the negative thoughts churning inside her. After a beat, she returned the hug, wrapping him in a soft, warm embrace. When they parted, Toriel healed him with a gentle wave of green fire. Surprised, Izuku stumbled backward and fell on his rear before letting out an embarrassed laugh. Toriel chuckled too, covering her mouth before her face turned solemn again. Izuku, she said softly, I can see in your eyes, you've grown stronger. You've made up your mind to keep going. She turned toward the hallway, but paused. If that's the case, I have one last request. Her voice wavered, heavy with sorrow. Please don't come back. I won't have the strength to let you go a second time. She hesitated. Even with your determination, I can't believe you'll survive Askari. I'm sorry. Izuku stood taller, placing a hand over his heart. A tear slid down his cheek, her words echoing in his chest like a memory long buried. He remembered something his mother once said, and for the first time, he fully understood it, even if it still hurt. He wiped his tears away and nodded, eyes glowing with determination. I'll prove you wrong, he whispered. Then, turning his back, he pushed open the heavy door. As it creaked shut behind him, he cast one last glance at Toriel. She smiled faintly. I hope so too. Scene change. The hallway beyond was dark, but a small patch of grass basked in soft light ahead. Izuku wondered, was this the last sunlight he'd see before leaving the underground? Before he could think further, Floey popped out of the grass, grinning. Well, looky what we have here, he drawled, mockery in his voice. You must feel so clever, getting through all that without killing anyone. He chuckled coldly. I can't wait to see the hope drain from your eyes when your soul is taken. No matter how strong you think you are, you'll meet someone who'll try to kill you. Then what? Floey's face morphed grotesquely, forming a twisted image of Toriel. Will you try to reason with them? Someone who won't bend to your words. His face split down the middle, aligning into something sinister. Or will you die begging, thinking the world owed you mercy? Ha ha ha. Floey's voice cracked into a shrill, maniacal laugh. But don't worry, little one, he grinned, sinking into the ground. When you finally give up, I'll be right here. One little hiccup in a plan years in the making doesn't scare me. Then he was gone. Izuku stood in silence, face twisted in a storm of emotion too tangled to name. He stepped around the grass patch and approached the towering stone doors. With a breath, he pushed them open. Izuku stepped out of the door, hearing it clang shut behind him, and found himself in a snowy forest. A gust of icy wind hit him, and he immediately started shivering. Holy geezums, it's cold, he muttered, hugging his arms tight to conserve heat. He crouched near a bush to escape the wind, then noticed a faint glint hidden inside. Pushing the branches aside, he spotted a camera tucked deep within. What the heck is that doing here? He whispered. When the wind died down, he decided to keep moving. As he trudged through the snow, an ominous sound followed him, growing louder with each step. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Izuku whipped his head around. Nothing there. Only an extra set of footprints beside his own. His face went pale, and he quickened his pace. Stepping over a large stick, he pressed forward, only to hear a sharp snap. He spun back. The stick was broken. The eerie ambience and strange happenings tightened every muscle in his body. Stiff-legged, he marched forward until he reached a bridge with fence-like rails overhead. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Footsteps, definite, deliberate, right behind him. A colder chill than the wind shot down his spine as a voice called out. "Hey there, bud. Don't you know how to greet a new pal? Turn around and shake my hand." Izuku froze. For one wild second, he considered running. But if this stranger wanted to hurt him, he'd already had plenty of chances. Summoning his courage, Izuku snapped his eyes shut, spun around, and moved out his hand. PPPPPTSSSSHSHSHSHHHT. The stranger chuckled, releasing Izuku's hand just as he opened his eyes. Ha. The old whoopee cushion in the hand trick. Never gets old. Izuku's jaw dropped. A skeleton, an actual living skeleton, stood grinning at him, tiny white flames flickering in his eye sockets like pupils. The skeleton raised his brow ridge with a smirk. "You might want to get your jaw off the ground. If you lose any more heat, you'll be chilled to the bone." Izuku snapped his mouth shut, his eyes sparkling with awe as they scanned the impossible figure. His hand twitched toward his bag, ready to grab a notebook, only to remember he'd forgotten to take one from Toriel's home. With a regretful sigh, he pushed his questions aside for now. Amused by Izuku's shifting expressions, the skeleton gave a lazy wave. "Hey, I'm Sans. Sans the skeleton. I work here as a human watchman." Izuku's eyes narrowed, wary. Sans only shrugged. "But I don't really care about the job. My brother. Papyrus, though, he's a human hunting fanatic." As if on cue, shouting and fast footsteps echoed through the snow. "That'll be him now," Sans said casually. Izuku broke into a literal cold sweat, glancing around frantically for cover. "Relax, kid," Sans drawled. "I got the perfect spot." He led Izuku past the bridge to a shabby outpost, lit poorly by a lamp too far away to be useful. "Here," Sans said, pointing under the post. "Papyrus hates checking back here. Says it's improper guardsmanship to have a messy work area," he added, complete with air quotes. Izuku ducked behind the post, surprised to find the space warm, thanks to the ridiculous amount of condiments stashed there. "Brother!" Izuku jumped at the sudden shout, making a stack of bottles rattle. The voice on the other side of the post sounded suspicious at the noise. Papyrus narrowed his eye sockets. "Sans, what do you have cluttering your post now?" Sans only shrugged. "Found a human. Just keeping him nice and warm for you." "Brother, this is no time for your jokes." Papyrus stomped his foot. "We both know how important it is to capture a human, especially me." Papyrus swooned at the thought, clearly lost in his own imagination. "I can already see it, Sans. Undyne congratulating me as I handed her the human. Fans lining up just to be my friends, bathing in compliments and kisses every morning." He let out a dreamy sigh, then snapped back to a stern glare. "And your laziness could ruin everything. What do you have to say for yourself?" "Come on, bro," Sans said smoothly, gesturing for him to follow. He walked behind his station and crouched down, cupping his gloved fingers over his face to shield Izuku, who was quietly panicking at how close Papyrus was. "Look, Paps, I get it. This means a lot to you. But," Sans started pulling out bottles of condiments, "if you want to catch up to your dreams, you gotta relish the quiet moments in between. We all know the gravy of our situation, but stressing over what we can't control will just leave you salty. You better not push yourself 24/7, you dig? But if you mustard, well, try your best where it counts." Papyrus groaned, dragging a hand down his face in a mix of exasperation and reluctant amusement. "Just, why do I find that amusing?" he muttered as he strutted away. Once Papyrus was gone, Sans leaned under the counter. "You okay, kid?" Izuku's face was bright red, tears of laughter welling in his eyes as he tried to hold it in, then gave up and giggled uncontrollably. Chuckling, Sans helped him to his feet and rummaged under the post until he found a fluffy blue and white jacket. "Here, you look like you're freezing." He tossed it to Izuku, who hurried to pull it on. Thank you." Izuku mumbled, melting into the warmth. "Don't mention it," Sans said, settling back onto his stool and twisting the cap off a bottle of warm ketchup. "Well, kid, it's been nice having some company, but I'm guessing you want to get moving." Izuku nodded, tugging the hood over his head, though his nervous glance down the path made it obvious he was worried about running into Papyrus. "Oh, one more thing." Sans leaned forward, a little more serious. My brother's been pretty down lately. There's nobody to use his puzzles on, and he's never even seen a human before. Could you do me a favor and play along? He's not dangerous, just it'd mean a lot to him. Izuku hesitated for a moment, then smiled and gave him a thumbs up. Sans grinned wider and waved him on his way. Don't be me. Sans' coat warms your heart. It fills you with determination. Heading down the path, a box catches Izuku's attention. Hey, you can use this box for whatever you need, and it will be provided all over the underground. Whatever you put in will be the same no matter what. Sincerely, a dedicated box lover. Huh. Izuku opened the chest to see a pair of gloves. With his hands red from the cold, he decided to put them on. The texture was rough on the outside and cozy on the inside. Attack damage up. Izuku frowned at the text and decided to ignore it on his way. Still fiddling with the gloves, he heard the voices ahead of him too late. Can you believe it, Sans? With my skills, I could finally... Papyrus turned to Izuku. Then Sans turned to him. Then again, Izuku stood there baffled as Sans and Papyrus spun in place, only to turn their backs to him. Oh my God, Sans, Papyrus mumbled while holding his head. Am I still too dizzy, or is that? They turned to Izuku. Aha! Hi! Izuku waved. Papyrus gasped and squealed. Oh my God, a human. Undyne is gonna. Everyone will. I'm gonna be a royal guard. Papyrus shook Sans by the shoulders. This is it, Sans. This is my big break. Instantly shifting gears, Papyrus took a regal posture. Hello there, human. While it's nice to see you, your journey ends here. I'll need to inform Undyne of your capture and deliver you at once. Stay here while I give my report, he said before bolting down the path. Continue if you dare face Teach. His voice faded down the path. Sans, recovering from the shaking, couldn't help but smile at Izuku's face. Izuku was slightly pale and mumbling over the information he had gotten from Papyrus, trying to figure out what to do. Hey, relax a bit, kid. I know it sounds bad, but you've got to get past him to continue. Undyne hates coming over here, so while he tries to catch you, you'll have plenty of time to win him over. Izuku wore a pale, dot-eyed expression as Sans guided him along the path to get him moving. Snapping out of his scrambled thoughts, Izuku thanked Sans and continued. As Izuku enjoyed the magical background melody of the area, he glanced at a sign. Absolutely no moving. Looking ahead at the post, Izuku decided to be as quiet as possible. Reaching the post, he dropped to his hands and knees and crawled out of sight of the window. Slam! Izuku was knocked over in surprise and fear as he gained a foothold and looked to the post. Something, the dog monster said frantically, sniffing the air, is moving, and once I find it, I'll make sure it'll never move again, he threatened, pulling out daggers. Doggo attacks. Heeding the sign's advice, Izuku stood still as Doggo approached. Clicking through the menu, he saw a pet option. Grimacing at the danger of the option, Izuku waited for Doggo to get closer to attempt the action. Right when Izuku was about to pet him, Doggo's daggers glowed and elongated to a light blue color before he swung them in a horizontal arc. Izuku was unable to react to the sudden attack and was too late to even attempt to dodge. However, to his utter confusion and relief, the attack had no effect. There's nothing there, Doggo pondered aloud. Izuku, with his heart beating out of his chest, took advantage of Doggo's confusion to scratch behind his ear. Doggo, surprised, melted at the head scratches, his leg involuntarily scratching at a phantom itch. Intensifying his scratches, Izuku managed to pacify Doggo. He had never had a dog, but when he could remember the times he had been at parks with his mom and all the dogs that would melt at his touch. With Doggo now a melted puddle of dog uphoria on the ground, he carefully got up and snuck away. As he left, he could just barely hear Doggo mutter, "Pet, I just pet from nothing. Nothing can pat me." Izuku couldn't help but softly giggle in relief and amusement on his way. Hey kid, Sans waved Izuku over. I got some advice on dealing with a type of attack. You want to hear? Yeah. Can you tell me about all the types you can? Sans put his mitten to his chin in contemplation. Well, we got blue attacks, my bro's specialty. Think about it like this. When you see a stop sign, it's red, right? Izuku nodded. So if you stop at a red stop sign, imagine a blue one in its place when facing one. You understand? When you see blue dashed, Sans pulled out a cardboard cutout of a yellow stop sign. Imagine a blue stop sign. Izuku's eye twitched in slight frustration and incredulity, while Sans' smile widened in amusement. Thanks. Izuku deadpanned before stepping away, slightly befuddled. Carefully attempting to walk over a patch of ice, Izuku overstepped and ended up sliding across the obstacle right into a monster. Ice Cap is defensive against your jealousy over its hat. Whoa, I'm sorry for dash. Izuku was cut off as ice shot from the ground around him. This is my hat. You can't take it from me. Izuku stumbled out of the way of emerging and falling icicles only to slip on a patch of ice and take a hit to his back. Oof. Izuku had the wind knocked out of him as an icicle instead of impaling him, hitting his soul and taking damage. While that had gone down, Ice Cap had noticed Izuku's lack of interest in his hat. Hello. Hi, hat is up here. Ice Cap beckoned. Izuku, while recovering, glancing at his options, decided to ignore the Ice Cap even if he was now a little curious about his hat. They stood in silence for a couple of minutes, Ice Cap anticipating Izuku's envy for its hat, and Izuku focusing on not giving in. Finally giving in, Ice Cap let out a defeated, almost sorrowful breath as he floated away. Someone who could resist my hat? How awful, he said as he left. Ice Cap was defeated. Getting a foothold, Izuku noticed a path back across the ice. Deciding to explore a little, he slid across on his hands and knees to the other path. Ah, snowman! Izuku exclaimed. Wow, I've never had someone this excited to see me before, the snowman said. Surprised, Izuku said excitedly as he inspected the snowman. Wow, we made like this? Or are you another kind of monster? I guess I'm both, it replied. Still, I would never be able to move from this place. Would you grant a snowman's request? What do you need? Could you take a piece of me throughout your journey? I can use what magic I have to make it last. This way, I can see the world. Okay, I'll make sure it'll be an experience. Bundling a piece of itself, it gave it to Izuku. It can experience the world from your bag, so don't worry too much. Take care, little one. The snowman waved its stick arm as Izuku continued. Sans, you lazy bones. Why you feel the need to sleep all the time? Sans shrugged. Dunno, my eye sockets just get heavy when it's cold out. Ugh, we don't even need to sleep. The least you could do is stay aware of your surroundings. Must I implement Undyne's awareness training to sharpen your senses? Papyrus suggested, a gleam in his eye. What are you talking about, Paps? I'm very aware. Right now, I'm even more aware of you. Oh, really? Then what's your awareness telling you about this place? Huh, he said skeptically. Well, I know that the human's been here for a while now. Sans grinned, pointing his thumb to the path. Startled, Papyrus whipped around to see Izuku standing before a patch of ground, watching the conversation in curiosity. With a slight coloring on his cheekbones, Papyrus cleared his throat. I apologize that you had to witness the human. However, this is where your journey comes to an end. For you see, what lies ahead of you is one of my dastardly puzzles. This is the invisible maze, without the ability to see the walls. You'll be shocked with electricity with every failed attempt. Once you've been defeated, I'll take you to the king. Izuku looked at Sans incredulously as he mentally screamed. Seriously, Sans? I think this is plenty to be worried about. Sans, sensing the panic in Izuku's stare, shrugged and lazily gestured for him to go on. Getting used to the sheer craziness of the underground, Izuku consciously took a step forward. Yeah. Papyrus yelped as his body was slightly charred and smoked. What the? Sans, what did you do? Papyrus stomped. I think the kids are supposed to hold the orb. Papyrus's face blanked for a second before pulling an ore from what looked like from nowhere. Oops, silly me. He scratched the back of his head. Human, this orb is what gives you the shock. However, I have forgotten to give it to you. Please hold on a moment. Treading to the human, Papyrus left what looked like obvious footprints in a fresh layer of snow, his trail marking the path through the maze. Setting the orb in Izuku's hands, he rushed back to the end and turned back to Izuku. Okay, you can go now. Izuku took a moment to observe the trail in the snow. As easy as it was to follow the path, he still would like to avoid the potential of a shock if he slips. Izuku's eyes widened, and he grinned as a metaphorical light bulb lit above his head. Tossing the orb aside and a sufficient distance away, he walked through the maze with a mischievous smile on his face. Papyrus, mouth agape with the audacity of a human smile as he walked up to him, had him frozen to his spot. Ha ha ha. Sans chuckled, nugging Papyrus's arm. Pretty shocking how clever the kid is, huh? Papyrus's eyes narrowed at Izuku. Feeling the stare, Izuku began to get nervous, cold sweat running down his head. Huffing, Papyrus turned away. Yes, brother, quite clever. However, this is only your first obstacle. The next one will not be so easy. Papyrus strutted away. Come, Sans, I must make sure my next puzzle has no workarounds like that one. Sans patted Izuku's shoulder. See, kid, nothing to worry about, you got a good noggin, he said before walking back where Izuku had come from. Proud of his solution, Izuku couldn't help but feel a warmth in his chest as he continued on. EHGH, Izuku exclaimed as he slipped on the ice again. No, the snowball melted. Huffing, Izuku ran back the path and around again to get another snowball. After trying and failing the mini-game over and over, he had become determined to get the high score. Locking in, he skillfully kicked the snowball over to the hole. Managing to steer the ball away from the ice, he had finally completed the game. Using these, you were able to win at ball game. Earned 50G. After reveling in the afterglow of his little accomplishment, he backtracked to the Nice Cream salesmanster as a reward before heading on his way. Seeing Papyrus and Sans around the corner, he popped the last bit of cone into his mouth and waved at the brothers. Nehaha, greetings, human. I hope you're ready for this next trap. I'd like to tell you about it, but Sans has finally decided to show some initiative and prepared his own puzzle for you. Papyrus glowed as he gestured for Sans to do his thing. After some silence, Sans, where's the puzzle? Oh, it's over there. Sans pointed between himself and Izuku. What? Papyrus deadpanned. Trust me, bro, there's no way he can solve it. Izuku, walking to the paper, picked it up and read it. Monster Kid's word search. Izuku smiled at the absurd puzzle and pocketed it for later. Sans, that did nothing. Whoops, my bad. I should have used today's crossword instead. What? Crosswords are so easy, and even so it still wouldn't do anything. Sans shrugged. Well, guess the kid won this round. Phew, very well. At least I can test out my next puzzle on them. Nyehehe, he laughed, running to his puzzle. Knowing the mouse may one day unstick the plate of spaghetti fills you with determination. Izuku let out a heavy breath as the save point restored Izuku completely. Inspecting the table, it was as it said, with the addition of a note. Hello, human. As a token of respect, please enjoy this plate of spaghetti. Little do you know, this is a dastardly trap concocted by the great Papyrus. Spaghetti cooked by the best spaghetti chef in the underground. Once you take a bite, you'll be too enraptured by my creation to continue. Nyehehe. Lots of nyehs. Papyrus. Touching the spaghetti, not only was it frozen on the table, but it was frozen solid. Izuku couldn't even get a taste. Mentally shrugging, he walked away. The next area was as generic as the ones before. As Izuku searched for the way to continue, he glanced over a sign. Warning dog marriage. Resuming his search, the strangeness of the sign, even for the underground, made him double-take. Yes, you read that correctly. Having been played by the sign, he sighed, amused, and forged along the snowy path, coming to spikes blocking the way forward. Oh, so there's some kind of puzzle, Izuku thought. Backing away from the spikes in his thoughts, Izuku found a patch of snow that covered some kind of writing underneath. Clumsily kicking and brushing away snow, he revealed enough context to determine a SWCH higher up the path. Finding it hidden underneath some dense snow, he pulled the SWCH. Hearing a sturdy clack from afar, Izuku dusted off his gloves and passed the puzzle, feeling ready for what was next. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Izuku froze at the sounds of footsteps heading his way. Attempting to backtrack, a click was heard behind him. Glancing where he heard the noise, Izuku's stomach dropped at the reset spikes of the puzzle. CRP. The silhouettes came closer, and sniffing sounds could be heard as they approached. This smell. One said. It's a weird smell, said the higher-pitched one. It makes me want to eliminate. Izuku tensed as he anticipated the direction of this dialogue. Eliminate you. With the sound of metal scraping against itself, Izuku dove in between them, landing in the snow and dirt as two battle axes occupied his previous spot. CRP, 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 CRP. Izuku cursed as he ran from the duo. Seeing their prey escape, the guards worked together, one grabbing the other and throwing them over and past Izuku. Noticing a shape above him, Izuku stopped in time to have a guardsman land in front of him, creating a crater of dirt and snow. Getting a proper look at him, Izuku realized it was another dog monster wearing a bow. Let's get rid of this weird smell, baby. The dog monster called from behind Izuku. Let's do it, my love. Having gotten a look at his opinions from his panel, he knew he had to pet them to de-escalate the situation. Before he had the chance, the dog guards spewed blue and white hearts at each other. Remembering the talk he had with Sans, Izuku was forced to duck and roll through the white barrage and freeze in the path of the blue attacks. Catching a whiff of Izuku, the dog with a bow gestured to stop. Wait, Dogami. Sniffing closer to Izuku. This smell. Doguressa, dear, is this a weird puppy? A look of horror came across Dogami's face. Did we just try to kill a puppy? What? There's no way. Doguressa took a harder sniff at Izuku. Dawning dread filled her. I don't know. Doguressa muttered unconvincingly. Oh my god, we almost killed a pup. What were we thinking? I don't know. I was following your lead. What do you mean, my lead? We are partners. We've always worked together. Izuku, shrinking away from between the arguing couple, couldn't help but feel bad for provoking the fight between them. As the fight became more heated, Izuku had made up his mind and trudged up to the pair, petting them and scratching behind their ears. The couple froze for a second at the unexpected contact before their eyes hazed in the bliss of the touch. Melting into each other, they began to reconcile. The puppy is petting us, Dogami pointed out. I didn't know dogs could pet other dogs, Doguressa mumbled. Does that mean we are forgiven? Yeah. Just please be careful and make sure you communicate better. Izuku soothed, bringing his hands back, nuzzled each other as they petted the opposites' heads. I'm so sorry for what I said, one mumbled hazily. Leaving the two to their devices, Izuku sighed in relief as he dusted himself off and continued down the path, nursing some scratches and forming bruises. Finally heading downhill, Izuku encountered a puzzle. Turn all the X's into O's. The sign read. Following its instructions, Izuku completed the puzzle in no time. Hearing a nearby clack of spikes retracting, Izuku saw Papyrus standing on the other side of the spikes. Meeting eyes with Papyrus, Izuku waved in nervousness. Ah, human! Papyrus exclaimed. How did you resist my trap? And is there any left for me? Oh, your spaghetti? I left it because it was frozen to the table. Papyrus looked disappointed before a fire lit in his eyes. Well, no matter. I'll be sure you try my cooking later. Nyehehe. He laughed down the path. Following him, Izuku was stopped by Papyrus at the entrance of the next puzzle. Halt! Human, I must confess something. Because of how you solved the electric maze, I wanted to make this puzzle unexploitable. However, the snow froze solid before I could make it so, along with looking like my face. Now, the solution is completely different. Not even I could decipher it. Feel free to try to solve the puzzle while I work out some solutions. Papyrus gestured forward. Izuku examined the layout of the puzzle, forming solutions and how to complete it in one go. After some dead ends and missteps, Papyrus was surprised by the sound of the spikes retracting. Wowie, you managed to solve it without my help. You're incredible green human. Izuku was slightly flustered at the compliment and form of address. It's nothing really, just trial and error. I'm sure you could have solved it just as easily. He said, scratching his cheek. The passion to solve amazing puzzles. Papyrus swooned. Another puzzle lover, like two peas in a pod. I'm even more excited to show you my next puzzle. Nay. Stay here for a moment while I get it ready. After some time, Izuku moved, smiling in anticipation of the next challenge. Welcome. This is something made by Dr. Alphys, the royal scientist. See these tiles? Each color has different effects, and with a flick of this SWCH, it will randomly generate a puzzle so complex it would take ages to complete alone. Papyrus pulled out a notebook and tossed it over to Izuku. Opening it, he found the first few pages detailing the rules of the puzzle. Red tiles act as solid walls. Yellow tiles force the player back to the last tile they stepped on by zapping them with electricity. Green tiles sound an alarm and make the player fight a monster after the puzzle. During the puzzle, it functions the same as pink tiles. Orange tiles change the protagonist's flavor to orange. Purple tiles act similarly to the ice in Snowdin Forest. They force the player to the next tile in the direction they are facing. Additionally, purple tiles change the protagonist's flavor to lemon. Blue tiles vary in function depending on the following factors. If the blue tile is adjacent to a yellow tile, the blue tile functions identically to a yellow tile. If the protagonist's flavor is orange, the blue tile functions identically to a yellow tile, but instead with piranhas that bite you. If neither of the above conditions is met, the blue tile functions identically to a pink tile. Pink tiles have no effect and can be walked on freely. Oh, Izuku thought, trying to process all the rules of the puzzle. Giving Izuku the time to process the rules, Papyrus called for attention. Are you ready, human? Cause here. Go, he exclaimed, pulling the lever. Tiles flashed in patterns slowly, making it look like it would choose soon, only to increase in speed and intensity. After a few seconds, it flashed in colors reminiscent of static, making Izuku glad he wasn't seizure-prone. Only for the puzzle to make a path of pink tiles. Everything froze as they all dot-eyed, came to the realization of what the machine spat out. Without making a sound, Papyrus, swirls in his eyes, stumbled past sands and down the path. While Izuku walked past many misshapen snow dogs, he had flipped through the notebook that Papyrus had given him. Taking the time to understand the puzzle, he was delighted by the emptiness of the rest of the book. Understanding the puzzle in this field of snow dogs fills you with determination. He sighed in satisfaction as he placed his bag next to the empty station. He asked the dear monster by the sentry station for any writing utensils. Finally given a pen, Izuku took a break from traveling beside the empty station. Sitting against it, he pulled out his new notebook, titling the notebook The Underground and Its Monsters. He finally had an outlet for his racing mind. He detailed everything he had seen so far during his journey. Magic has effects on the environment of the underground. Puzzles are commonplace and seem to be ingrained in their culture. Magic works as most emitter-type quirks, giving them the ability to shape personalized attacks. Finishing his writings, he held the notebook to his chest as he leaned his head back and closed his eyes. I wonder what's happening back home? Mom would definitely be worried about me. I'm pretty sure I'll miss out on a lot of new hero debuts and hero news. Letting his mind wander, he drifted off into a shallow nap. With a oof, Izuku was forced awake with a weight on his body. Snapping his eyes open, he was face to face with a dog in armor. Lesser Dog cuddles you. Still surprised, Izuku absent-mindedly scratched behind Lesser's ears. With a contented whine, Lesser rolled off Izuku and licked his face by abnormally stretching his neck before trotting off. Man, this place is weird, Izuku thought, amused as he collected his belongings. Heading down the path, Izuku was challenged by the Ice Exos puzzle. Failing and finding himself admiring how Papyrus managed to make a snow version of himself with how top-heavy it was, Izuku completed the puzzle and found himself past a break in the path and in a field of snowpuffs. Gliding his hands over them as he walked, he took his time to enjoy the sounds of his shoes crunching through the snow, the texture on his gloves as he patted the puffs, and the background music of the snowy biome. coming to a path blocking his way. He attempted to step around it until he saw the snow break away and a dog's head shake away the remaining snow. "Ah, you're a cute little guy," Izuku exclaimed, petting its head. Enjoying the pets, the dog grew over Izuku, revealing armor and a spear with a dog face on it. Still shocked at the turn of events, Izuku was glomped by the excited dog. Izuku whipped the slobber off his face with his jacket as Greater Dog left in a good mood. "If I ever do get a dog, I'll get one that won't slobber like that." Walking down a bridge, refraining from looking down at the snowy forest below, Izuku saw Sans and Papyrus at the end, along with what looked like buildings. "Hello there, human," Papyrus greeted. "This is your final trial. You've bested me at every turn, so now I've had to bring out my ultimate trump card." Papyrus pressed a button on the remote he held. Behold, the Gauntlet of Deadly Terror. He presented as various weapons and gizmos surrounding the bridge, along with a random dog. Overwhelmed by the actual threat this trap posed, Izuku sweated to come up with an escape plan. With his mind racing and Papyrus giving some time to adjust to the trap, Izuku was the center of a mutter storm as he thought. Human?" Papyrus asked, feeling a bit awkward at the length of time Izuku had been in his own head. Snapping out of the trance, he braced himself for whatever would come. Seeing Izuku's readiness, Papyrus gave a slightly uncertain grin. "All right then, are you ready?" "Because I am about to do it." Papyrus emphasized each phrase as he inched his hand closer to the remote. "Papyrus, that doesn't look very activated." "What?" "Okay, I'm about to activate it now." Another few seconds passed. "Is something wrong, bro?" Sans asked knowingly. "Well, this trap seems a little overboard for the human, don't you think?" Papyrus asked. He gestured to the contraption. "This feels too easy, you know? I've prided myself on capturing them with my complex puzzles, and right at the end, I make a completely impossible trap?" He shook his head. "There's no class in this. If I'm going to capture them, I'll be on equal ground," he said, pressing a button that retracted the trap. Izuku noticed a slight easing of Papyrus's shoulders. "I'll see you at the end of Snowed-In Town at the entrance of Waterfall Human," he said, tightening his fist. "We'll settle this there." He threw back as he marched off. Finally relaxing on the solid ground, Sans came up to him. "Well, that was unexpected, kid. For you to make him bring that out, even for a moment. You've really gotten his respect." He patted. "Good luck with him, kid. I'll see you after the fight," Sans said, walking past Izuku and down the bridge. Starting to question the complexities of Sans, Izuku walked into the town. Greeted with a cheerful, almost holiday-ish tune of Snowed-In Town, he was greeted to the town square. Monsters of all kinds, from one that looked like a bear monster praying at a Christmas tree with some kids playing in the snow. Taking in the setting of Snowed In fills you with comfort and determination. Seeing a shop, Izuku entered and was greeted by a bunny woman behind the counter. "Oh my," the teller exclaimed. "You must be the human that the dog's been raving about." "THD, he been raving about me?" "Oh yes, dear. Every monster here knows not to pet the dogs on duty. Though with the impression you've made on them, nobody here should have a problem with you," she said reassuringly. "Now, how can I help you?" Walking out of the store with wrapped Cinnabunnies in his bag and a handkerchief with abeys under his jacket, Izuku explored the town. He imagined this experience would be similar to exploring other countries back home. He talked with a few of the kind locals, learning some of the lore of Snowed In, and expanded on that at the library. Anything he found interesting, which was almost everything, was used to expand his underground journal. Finally, Izuku entered the inn to decompress. After being given the room for free out of the owner's kindness, Izuku finally had the chance to wash himself and his clothes. Draped in complimentary robes, Izuku lay on the bed and let his mind digest his recent experiences. For the first time in a while, he felt not happy, he contemplated. No, it might be content. Noon here judged him for what he was. Everyone was so kind, and here he didn't need to worry about doing or saying the wrong things. He didn't know if he should feel guilty for wanting to stay here longer, but he knew this couldn't last. He didn't know what was happening back home, or even if this was all some sort of coma dream. But he still had things he wanted to do. He was going to do. As he drifted off to sleep, he felt the familiar warmth of his soul overcome his body. Izuku Midoriya was frustrated. Even after days of waiting, no new information had been given to any of the victims' families. She knew she was being unreasonable, given the supernatural. Even with society's new standards, investigations into the victims of the Undertale plague. She thought the name was iffy, but whatever. Her mind needed something else to focus on besides her helplessness with her child's life on the line. She cringed with shame and regret now that she had days to look back on everything she had done wrong by Izuku. She remembered all the times Izuku clearly needed help or was hiding how he had really felt for the sake of keeping normality. Even if this wasn't Izuku's fault, the fact that those memories might be the last of Izuku alive. She felt a darkness deep in the back of her mind at the thought. The pain of her nails digging into the palm that wasn't attempting to rip off her shirt snapped her out as she heard an alarm on her laptop. It was left open, with an old search query containing the same information as before. Then again, she hadn't touched it since yesterday. After the first few days, she needed reminders to eat. Closing the alarm, she refreshed the page to find anything new before going to the hospital cafeteria. She was then promptly bombarded with new news. New website for Undertale. We finally have at least an alias for the creator. Governments all over the world band together to uncover the identity of the creator of Undertale. Scanning through some of the articles, she clicked on the link to the new website provided by the creator of the program. She was taken to a black page. A game where noon has to die. Brought to you by LastDreamrr. High scores, none. Completed, none. Souls, none. Deaths, 300. Rankings, emptiness. Her heart dropped at the death count. She hadn't seen any recorded deaths of players in any articles. Her eyes teared up as she attempted to think through her emotions. There were no mentions of any victims dying in any article. She reassured herself. Scrolling down the page, 9 spaces were arranged in. A circle with question marks in each. Without any answers, she closed the laptop, massaged her tired eyes, and let out a sigh. "Please come back to me, baby," she prayed. Tamura Shigaraki jolted awake, eyes wild, every nerve on edge. Whoever dared to kidnap him and leave him alive was about to die. But as his vision cleared, he froze. The familiar fingers of his father's hand weren't there. With no comforting weight, no partial veil over his sight, his neck itched furiously at the absence, and he tore at it, nails scraping skin until it burned. He scanned his surroundings. The mouth of a cave, deep in the wilderness. Nothing but trees and rock in every direction. His gaze dropped to his side, where a bag sat, suspiciously out of place. Gritting his teeth, he clawed at his neck while rifling through it, careful not to activate his quirk and reduce it all to dust. CRP, SHD, garbage, he muttered, tossing aside useless item after item. His fingers found a folded piece of paper. He barely skimmed it before reducing it and the rest of the bag's contents to powder. His neck was raw now, BLD dribbling down his fingers as his mind raced. Could this be one of Sensei's tests? But no, Sensei always supervised his training. And under Sensei's watch, no one would have dared take him. A memory surfaced, something from long ago. An old game that Sensei once showed him. Sword Art Online. Something extra. A death game. Players trapped in virtual reality, fighting for their lives. The sting of his bloody nails snapped him back to the present. The idea lodged itself in his brain. Could that be what this was? Status, he barked. Nothing. Inventory. Menu. Then ping. A screen flickered into view. Name the fallen human. A grin split his face, wide and feral. His hand finally stilled from his neck as he typed in, Tamura Shigaraki. The screen faded. Tamura turned toward the cave, glee lighting his features. He strode forward, only to feel something snag his foot. Trip. God damn it. That was a cheap trick, he roared, face contorted with rage. Sensei would make me train 10 times harder if he knew I fell for that. Crunch. Kurojiri sighed, already familiar with the routine. He could hear his young MS Tar screaming through the walls of the bar. Another game lost, another rage fit brewing. Judging by the thump he just heard, it was likely the last controller being smashed. Again, without missing a beat, Kirojiri placed an order online for replacements. He'd pick them up later. But when several minutes passed in silence, unusual silence, his instincts tensed. Preparing for retaliation, should Tamura lash out for entering his space uninvited again, Kirojiri cautiously phased his head into his portal. What he saw made him freeze. Tamura lay unconscious on the floor. A pile of ash rested in one hand. The gnarled hand of his father, the one that usually covered his face, had fallen beside him. Kirojiri didn't hesitate. A portal opened beneath the boy, warping him to Dr. Garaki's lab, and a message was immediately dispatched to Sensei. Startled by the sudden arrival, Dr. Garaki dropped the clipboard and spilled his drink. But years of experience took over fast, and he began prepping the medical equipment, barking orders at Kirojiri as he examined the unconscious boy. Meanwhile, in the depths of his private lair, the symbol of fear, All for One, tapped his fingers impatiently on the arm of his throne. What was left of his face twisted in irritation and unease. What happened to Tamura? The question gnawed at his mind. If his protege didn't wake up soon, it would mean the loss of over a decade of planning, grooming, and evolution. Gone. Just like that. His fingers tapped faster as contingencies began running through his mind. Dozens of backup plans. Fail-safes. None of them is good enough for his timeline. With a breathless pause, he shifted his attention through his technopathy quirks to Tamura's room, combing through any digital clues that might explain what had happened. Gasp! Tamura awoke with a sharp inhale, heart racing. He took a second to gather his bearings before the pain hit him. GH! He snarled, clutching his left arm, now bent at a sickening angle. Fury replaced confusion as he began scratching his neck again, BLD smearing beneath his nails. The pain didn't stop him from standing, barely. Stumbling forward, his steps uneven, Tamura entered a wide room. In the center, a single flower stood, glowing unnaturally. Howdy, I'm Floey. Floey, the flower froze. The human just walked past him. Floey blinked. This was new. A wicked grin split the flower's face as vines whipped from the ground and snapped around Tamura's broken arm. Where do you think you're going, idiot? Tamura roared in agony, but as soon as he registered the pain, his eyes snapped to the culprit. Fury boiled into violence. He grabbed the vine with his full hand, and it crumbled into dust. Floey's grin faltered. More vines shot out, surrounding Tamura in a living cage. Floey laughed. Hee hee. Pretty interesting seeing a human with this much spunk. But let me give you some advice. Down here it's kill or be killed. Despite the searing pain, Tamura moved. He pushed through the assault, AFO's training kicking in. Each vine he touched disintegrated, the gap growing larger with every step. Realizing the extent to which the human was willing to go to kill him, Floey tried to retreat, but it was too late. Tamura broke through and grabbed him by the stem, yanking him from the soil. Roots followed, trembling and flailing, while the rest in the environment shriveled and died. Floey panicked. Hey, wait, I see now. You're a lot like. His words died in his throat as Tamura's grip tightened. Forced to look into the human's eyes, he froze. There was no fear in his eyes, no mercy, just an empty, seething void of apathy and hatred behind glowing crimson irises. It's like you said, Tamura growled, lips curling into a cruel smile. Kill or be killed. Floey's face crumpled with fear. Tears rolled down his cheeks. W8. Tamura's thumb pressed to his stem. The flower crumbled to dust. A rush of satisfaction and heat bloomed in Tamura's chest. His breathing steadied. The itch at his neck faded, just a little. You earned 10 EXP. LV2. Step, step, step. Hearing the footsteps coming his way, Tamura got ready to fight. Oh my. Toriel gasped in worry. Are you all right, human? As she approached, Tamura guarded his mangled arm and lunged at Toriel. Surprised, Toriel caught Tamura ready to heal his injuries before she felt a deep pain spread from her arm. Stepping back in pain and disbelief, She watched as she started to turn to dust. "Why?" she questioned softly as she collapsed. In just moments, she was dusted. LV up. LV3. Feeling the burning in his chest intensify, Tamura came to a realization. This was a playground. This was his chance to practice and perfect himself to achieve his ultimate goal. He would destroy everything. His smile cracked his dry skin open as he laughed, BLD running through his smile and dust on his hands. Izuku took a deep breath of Snowden's air. Feeling the chill in his throat, Izuku watched as his exhale clouded his vision. This was it. After a good night's sleep and the surprise of an extra 10 horsepower added to his maximum, he was ready to face Papyrus. Taking his time walking past what the locals pointed out to be the Skeleton Brothers' house, he found himself slowly engulfed in mist. "Halt!" Papyrus commanded. Izuku could barely make out his opponent's silhouette. "Before we start, I need to talk about some complex feelings." Izuku solemnly nodded. "Okay." Feelings like Papyrus paused, contemplating how to put it into words. The joy of matching someone's cleverness, admiring the guts it takes for one to look outside the norm to complete a task. Having someone cool and smart think you're cool. These feelings, they must be what you've been feeling now. Izuku blanched at the assumption. "I could hardly blame you for feeling this way. I know how amazing I am. I've never wondered what having lots of friends is like. But I pity you. I pity that these feelings cannot be reciprocated because of my duty. But I wanted to make an exception this once. I would like to be your dash." Papyrus paused. "No dash. No, this isn't right. I have a duty to my post, to my people, to my potential friends and family." Papyrus affirmed with heat in his voice. The mist had started to clear as Papyrus became visible to Izuku. "This is my duty as a royal guard, to capture you and take you to the king." Izuku, long ready, tensed as the pressure of battle engulfed him, the determination to continue home burning. Papyrus, with a simple gesture, pointed a wall of blue bones toward Izuku. Waiting out the attack, there was a tense pause before Izuku's soul was turned blue and a new weight was added to him. Seeing a bone wall approach, he was forced to discover his new status. While he felt he could move normally, his jumps gained the feeling of being underwater, making his jumps slow and higher than before. "You're blue now. That's my attack. Nyehehehe. Play Undertale Ost. Bone Trousel." Glancing at the menu, he didn't like the options he had, so he did nothing. "This won't stop me, Papyrus. I'll keep going forever if I have to," Izuku declared. "Oh, the passion." Papyrus swooned. "Once I've captured you, we must hang out," he suggested, sending out waves of attacks. Izuku was forced through what would be the equivalent of obstacles seen in old military movie obstacle courses. After a few nicks while he adapted to the blue sensation, Izuku mastered the art of dodging like an untrained teen. He was forced to jump, weave, and roll through the waves of the bone barrage thrown his way. "Wah!" he screamed, diving into a tight gap in what looked like Papyrus's last attack. "Wowie! This is the longest any human has lasted against me," he praised as Izuku panted from the stress of the dangerous workout. "I must commend you for making it this far with only minor scratches. I might not look it, but I've grown weary of this fight," he confessed, looking quite tired himself. "It's time I brought out my special attack." Papyrus adopted a cool attack pose as he waited for his attack to fire. Turning around, he was exasperated at the sight of a dog biting one of his bones. "What the get off that, you mangy mutt?" he demanded as he chased down the dog. Getting his ankles broken and falling in the snow from the dog's clever feint, he gave up and patted himself off. Hearing the sounds of suppressed giggles, Papyrus buried his embarrassment. "Fine then, I guess I'll just have to make a really cool normal attack." Recovering in time for the final barrage, Izuku jumped over and through bone structures made to look cool, but seemed repetitive to the rest of his attacks. However, he quickly regretted that thought when a sea of bones was crashing his way. Forced to jump for his life, he was surprised to feel himself lift with his intent to jump. He flew over the sea of bones, clittering and clacking with ferocity. Seeing a huge bone in his path, Izuku failed D trying to force his way up just barely over the largest bone he had seen in his life before making on the other side and landing roughly. Feeling the force of the landing travel through his legs, causing them to shake, he prepared to continue the dodging, only to see a lone, small bone head his way. Wobbly stepping to the side, Izuku looked at Papyrus, who was somehow sweating, huffing, and puffing like he needed to breathe. "Well, Dash," he gasped. "I guess that's it, human. You can't beat me, but I can see you're at your limit. I guess we could call a tie. I, the great Papyrus, will now spare you. Please accept my mercy." Accepting the out given, Izuku's legs gave out from the jump, and he fell back into the snow. The cold air stung his lungs, but he had done it. He didn't necessarily win, but he didn't lose, and that was the win. Nyo-ho-ho. Hearing the cry, Izuku got to his feet. "I couldn't stop someone as weak as you," Papyrus questioned. "My dreams are over. Undyne will be so disappointed, and worst of all, my friend count will forever remain stagnant." He wailed now on his hands and knees. Walking over to the sad skeleton, Izuku patted his back. Papyrus? If you'd still want to, I could still be your friend." Papyrus's eyes lit up in hope. You'll still want to be friends with me?" Izuku nodded with a comforting smile on his face. "Wowie, I finally have my first friend." He jumped in joy. Who knew all you had to do to make them was to give beings awful puzzles and then fight them? Izuku grimaced at the implications of Papyrus's train of thought. "Yeah, I don't think you need to do that for everybody," Izuku suggested. Papyrus blinked. "Oh my gosh," he screamed. "I never even got your name." Izuku chuckled as he came to the same realization. "Let's start over, human. I'm the great Papyrus." He was introduced by extending his hand. "I'm Izuku Midoriya. You can call me Izuku," he said, firmly shaking the bony hand. "Since we're friends now, I'll tell you to get out of the ruins." Papyrus smiled. "Keep heading west through Waterfall. Past that, you'll need to trek through Hotland. Finally, you'll take a few elevators through the core into New Home, then into the castle." Looking down at Izuku, he was met with the boy scribbling the instructions down in his notebook. Pausing in the writing due to a thought, Izuku's mood dipped. "Do you think the king would let me through?" he asked, remembering Toriel's warning. Papyrus's smile widened at the question. "What the king?" he said, amused. "You won't need to worry about him. He's a big, fluffy pushover. I'm sure if you asked him, 'Excuse me, Mr. Dreamer, will you please guide me home?' he'd take you to the bar himself." His head was at war with itself, trying to implement the conflicting information about the king. Finishing what he could, Izuku bowed to Papyrus. "Thank you for the instructions, Papyrus." Izuku thanked. "No need for that, little Izuku. But since we're friends now, feel free to come by any time to hang out," Papyrus said, heading to his house. "I'll see you when you're ready." Waving back at him, Izuku pondered what to do next. "Hey!" Izuku jumped at the greeting as he met Sans eyes. "Oh man, you got me," Izuku said, relaxing at the familiar face. "Yeah, I decided to watch the fight. Congrats on the tie," he complimented. "It didn't feel like a win, though. I didn't throw a punch, and I just barely dodged what he had." Sans patted Izuku's shoulder. "Don't expect so much from yourself, kid. My bro's pretty strong. The fact that you faced him like that was inspiring." Blushing at the praise, Izuku changed the subject. "Was there something you needed?" "Oh yeah, I was wondering, before you hang out with my bro, would you want to relax for a bit of Grillby's? I know how eccentric my bro is, and if you're going to hang with him, you need some R&R, he said, guiding Izuku to the restaurant. Clinkling. A bell chimed as Sans opened the door to Grillby's. "Ladies first." Sans gestured forward. Ignoring the comment, Izuku walked in with Sans, greeting the other customers and firing off jokes left and right, along with some apologies thrown Izuku's way from the Snowden guards. Sans and Izuku sat at the counter. "So kid, what do you want? Burgers or fries?" "I'll take the burger." "Okay, hey Grillby, we'll have a double order of burg." Waiting for the food, Izuku became a little uncomfortable with the silence and began to fidget, trying to think of a topic of conversation. "So, my brother, what do you think of him?" Sans asked, caught off guard with the sudden question. Izuku took a second to answer. "I like Papyrus. He's a little extra, but who isn't? Izuku shrugged, thinking about Papyrus's eccentricities. Yeah, that's what makes him so great. That and his dream of becoming a member of the Royal Guard. Izuku winced at the statement. Is that going to be a problem now that we're friends? Maybe? Undyne might beat him up a bit, but Papyrus is too forgiving for it to be too major. Sans shrugged it off. Just then, Grillby came out with the plates of burgers. Hey, Grub's here. Getting situated, Sans offered Izuku some ketchup. You want some? Shaking his head in the negative, Sans met and drank the condiment from the bottle. Izuku shuddered at the display and took a bite from his food, letting the taste permeate his mouth. Izuku felt the unnatural but still pleasant texture of the food as his scrapes and bruises started to heal. Wow, Izuku muttered. How does food here do this? He asked while watching the effects. It's monster food. Due to monsters being made of mostly magic, food has an instant effect type of quality. Halfway finished with his food, Izuku couldn't help but take his notebook out and write down this new experience. A moment later, Sans' tone shifted. Hey, can we be real for a sec? I got a question for you. Izuku felt the world pause. It was like time stopped, and the only ones alive at that moment were he and Sans. Have you ever heard of a talking flower? Izuku's heart dropped at his understanding. Yes, he nodded solemnly. Ah, so you know of it, the echo flower. They're all over Waterfall. Anything they hear would be repeated over and over. Izuku scratched the back of his head. Sorry, I had thought of something else. But why are they so important? You see, Papyrus has had some interesting stories for me recently. Whenever he's alone, a flower appears and whispers things to him. Flattery, advice, encouragement, predictions. I think someone's been using an echo flower to play tricks on him. Actually, Izuku explained the ordeal he had to face with Flowey. Taking a moment to digest the new information, Sans combed his skull while his eyes were hollow, the usual magic flames within extinguished. I see. Sans recovered. Thanks for the heads up, kid. I'll be on the lookout from now on. Sans patted Izuku's back as noise and life resumed in the background. Getting up from his seats, Sans guided Izuku to the brother's house. Hello, Izuku, Papyrus greeted. I'll be inside. Don't go crazy, you hear? Sans waved, heading inside. Are you ready for us to hang out? Yeah, it's been a while, though. Izuku revealed, slightly embarrassed. No need to worry. Papyrus said, revealing a book. We have instructions on how to hang out right here. But first, I must take you to a place where I spend most of my time for the hangout. Leading the way, Papyrus took Izuku through a lap of the town before settling back where they started. My house. Laughing to himself at the bit, Izuku was led into the living room. Sitting on the couch, Papyrus stood flipping through his book. Now, let's see here. We could talk about ourselves to get to know each other. He mumbled, flipping through pages. Listening to the options as Papyrus mumbles, Izuku perked up at something interesting. Bond over questions relating to hobbies sounds good. Closing the book, Papyrus excitedly sat beside Izuku. Well, you already know I'm training to be in the Royal Guard. I also like cooking and crafting puzzles, he rambled. Oh, and sometimes I practice my magic with Undyne, though that might count as training. You next. He insisted. I'd love to know what my first friend does for fun. Well, Izuku thought. I don't really do much that's interesting. Izuku opened his bag and took out his new notebook. I mostly watch hero fights. Gasp. Heroes. Like heroes in movies. Yeah, pro heroes spend a lot of time keeping people safe. I like to take notes on their quirks and strategies during fights or rescue scenarios. I want to be one day. Papyrus draped an arm over Izuku's shoulder. I see. We both have high ambitions that we strive to complete. He cried. I've never felt closer to someone whom I could relate to so much. However, one thing confuses me. What's a quirk? Quirks are superpowers. Almost everyone has one, and some of the strongest people hone theirs to be heroes. Papyrus nodded in understanding. I see, it's a lot like magic and how it can be used. Actually, could you explain how magic works? Nyehaha. I could do you one better. Would you like a demonstration? Izuku nodded eagerly, pen and notebook ready. The duo left the house as Papyrus explained what he knew about magic. Undyne explained it to me like this. Magic is the very energy of the soul. Drawing it out is not only second nature to a monster, but it also takes the shape most natural to their species and personality. Opening his hand, he materialized a bone and twirled it around. Once that step is mastered, all it takes is some creativity and Papyrus made the ground in front of him erupt with bones. As Izuku finished his extensive notes and drawings of the magic, Papyrus had gotten excited again. Could you demonstrate your quirk? I'd love to see what power you have. Izuku got quiet. I don't have one, he muttered. Papyrus, feeling the mood shift, patted Izuku on the shoulder. That's okay. Would you like to try using magic instead? Izuku's eyes widened. Can humans use magic? Yes, silly. How else could the humans have sealed monsters underground? Izuku looked at his hands. I can have my own power. Feeling a heat in his chest, Izuku's heart rate quickened in excitement. How do we start? Papyrus froze. I don't know how humans use magic, but I'm sure we could figure it out. They cycled through different feelings or explanations on how to draw out magic. After exhausting most methods, they lay in the snow, mentally tired and unsure. What am I missing? Izuku closed his eyes and thought about everything that had happened since he entered the underground. Lifting his hand as if to grasp something, he analyzed. I've never felt anything different about myself my whole life. Only coming here did I start to feel something foreign. The heat in my soul. Izuku felt it. He wanted the heat. He thought about his parents' quirks and what they could have been. He remembered the flames Toriel had made to try to make him stay. He imagined what would happen if this didn't work. Just Izuku. Nothing special, nothing more to offer, never being enough. He pushed and prodded at the heat. At first it didn't give, but slowly it molded to his thought, to his will. He wanted to use it to become a hero. He pushed it out. He was blinded by green light and heat as a fireball expanded from his hand into the air. He was mesmerized by the dance of the flames. He smiled as he absent-mindedly noted the colors of the fire as it got further away. A crimson-red core with green highlights. And everything went black. The turning point. Izuku. 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 Izuku woke up in Papyrus's arms. Thank goodness you're awake. You've been out for 10 agonizing minutes. He wailed. Izuku fell drained, barely registering Papyrus's presence. He steadily got on his feet and went over his last memories before he froze in awe and excitement over his newly discovered power. Did you see that? Papyrus smiled reassuringly. Indeed, Izuku. It looks like my teaching skills precede me. Flexing his fingers, he felt the burn again and willed the smallest amount he could from his hand. Whoosh! I did it, he thought, mesmerized by the red and green flame. Papyrus walking over took off a glove and, before Izuku could react, waved his pinky through the flame. Interesting, Papyrus mumbled at the damage output, or lack thereof. You didn't make that with the intent of hurting, right? He asked. Nodding in agreement, Izuku made another in his offhand and watched the red and green swap palettes as the flame grew bright. Testing Papyrus's hand again drew back in reflex as he forced it under the snow to cool it off. Yoch! Wowie, that's some very powerful magic. He congratulated, wincing in slight pain. Feeling a pair of arms engulf his still crouched body, Papyrus couldn't help but return the hug as Izuku shook in excitement. Dusting off the snow as Izuku wrote in his notebook, Papyrus examined the scorched bone and hid the wound with his glove. I think that concludes a successful hangout. Papyrus declared, let us get some food to replenish ourselves. He prompted, dragging Izuku to the corner store. Enjoying the fresh pastries, Peruz bid Izuku farewell and cautioned him against using his new magic carelessly. Whoa! Izuku muttered absent-mindedly as the environment shifted dramatically from the cold to a humid, cool. Using his newfound magic, he couldn't get over that fact. Izuku had it hover over his head in an imitation of Endeavor's flames. Able to see better, Izuku passed Sand's post and encountered a waterfall and falling rocks. Taking the time to not get hit, Izuku managed through the obstacle with only an extinguished flame. Seeing grass ahead, Izuku left his magic off as he shuffled through the tall grass. Tap, tap, tap. Izuku froze at the sound of metal hitting stone. Focusing on the direction he heard it from, he heard muffled mumbling. Growling, where is he? He's usually on point with this stuff. The figure mumbled, frustrated. Frantic steps were heard seconds later, along with frantic breathing. Hi Undyne. I'm here with your daily report. Skip that papyrus. They interrupted. You fought and captured the human as I ordered you to, right? They questioned. Well, Papyrus stuttered, trying to come up with an answer. And no. What? I tried very hard to Undyne. Papyrus tried explaining. But you see, their strength and willpower were equal to mine. It ended in a draw, and then we became friends. You see, I think there might be a misunderstanding among us, and this dash. Stop. Papyrus's mouth clacked shut. Hearing the metal and hear Armor's gloves creak and squeal as everyone there assumed your patience was running out. Most gulped in apprehension. Let me get this straight, she started. You find your first human in Snowed In, and after trying and failing to capture them, you become buddies? Undyne sighed. You will listen to me, you will understand me, and you will follow my orders. Papyrus nervously nodded. I'll take the human's soul myself. You will give me everything you know about the human, and you will return to your post, understand? What? But Undyne, you don't need to destroy them. The human dash. Papyrus was cut off by a glare only he could see. I understand, he said, shuffling away. Hearing the noise quiet down, Izuku attempted to continue, only to step in a particularly wet spot. Freezing at the sound, Izuku heard metal footsteps approach him as he held his breath in terror. Undyne used her spear to jab into the grass, missing Izuku by at most a foot before they were satisfied and left for real. Stuck like that for a few more moments, trying to fight through his scared, stiff body. Regaining some control, he made it out the other side on hands and knees, panting for air. You. Izuku jumped at the sudden voice, flexing his hand ready to conjure fire, only to see the kid from Snowed In looking lost in joy, his eyes glazed over. That was awesome. Did you see how she was trying to find us? That was the coolest. Come on, let's go see if she'll beat up some bad guys. Monster Kid ran off, leaving Izuku on the brink of a panic attack and sheer WTF on his face. You feel the shift in your journey, and you're apprehensive. Still, you're determined to see it through. Izuku took a deep breath to shake the metaphorical ice from his veins. He was scared, not like before when harm wasn't severe. He needed to be careful, or he would die. He took a moment to process the thought before moving on. Play Undertale OST. Waterfall. Izuku was absorbed in the ambient music of the area as he was introduced to a flower puzzle. Izuku quickly grasped the concept and found the correct path. Ring, ring, ring. His phone buzzed. His heart stopped for a moment. Only Toriel had the number for this phone. Pulling it out and clicking accept, he waited for the voice on the other end. Hello, this is Papyrus. Am I speaking to Izuku? Sighing in what could be relief or disappointment. Izuku nodded before realizing he was on the phone. Hey, yes, it's me, Papyrus. How did you get my number? Well, that's easy. I just dialed every number until I got yours. Nyehehe. Izuku smiled at Papyrus's energy. By the way about you. What are you wearing? I'm asking for a friend. Izuku was slightly taken aback at the directness. What am I wearing right now? Izuku asked, buying time to answer. I'm wearing the jacket Sans gave me. He decided to trust him. Got it. So you're wearing a blue and white jacket and totally not going to change out of it. Got it. Wink, wink. Okay, I got the hint. No problem, Papyrus. Bye. After taking the time to fold and store away his jacket, Izuku continued into a dark tunnel with sparkling rocks overhead and echo flowers dotting the path. Walking through the wishing room, he heard passing conversations. A long time ago, monsters would whisper their wishes to the stars in the sky. If you hoped with all your heart, your wish would come true. Now, all we have are these sparkling stones on the ceiling. Thousands of people wishing together can't be wrong. The king will prove that. Come on, sis. Make a wish. I wish my sister and I could see the real stars someday. Hearing the hopes of the monsters stirred something within Izuku. felt a pang in his chest, wanting so badly for something he wasn't strong enough to do, leaving the longing as a dream. He shook away the thoughts as he came to a split section with two dead ends. Izuku figured out the puzzle with the telescope and revealed a hidden door. Walking onto a dock of some kind, writing he couldn't read was written in a glowing substance. Running his fingers against the edges, a text box appeared, translating the glyphs. The war of humans and monsters. Oh, he continued. Why did the humans attack? Indeed, they had nothing to fear. Humans are unbelievably strong. It would take the soul of every living monster to equal the power of one single human. Soul. But humans have one weakness. Ironically, it is the strength of their soul. Its power allows it to persist outside the body, even after death. If a monster defeats a human, they can take its soul. A monster with a human soul. A beast with unfathomable power. Izuku shivered in horror and something unnamed as he looked at the illustration of what was presumably one of the beasts. This is why they want my soul. Why? Why do all of this? His mind racing, he didn't notice the environment shift as he walked down the path. The ambience stopped, and the only thing heard was the sound of rushing water. Finally noticing the shift, he was too late when a spear was violently embedded in front of him. Turning towards the angle it was thrown, Izuku paled at the menacing armor of Undyne. Then, without thought, he hurtled past the spear and ran as if his life depended on it. Which it did. Chasing after Izuku, Undyne hurled spears, sometimes in multiple groups at once. Unable to focus on the winding path and the volley of spears, Izuku's luck ran out as a spear impaled itself through his forearm. Crashing to the ground in agony, he felt the bridge shake as the figure of Undyne crashed mere meters from his feet. This is it. Finally, she growled as she summoned a spear, ready to finish the job. Facing death, Izuku felt the burning more than ever. In a desperate move, he focused the burning on his legs as he kicked at Undyne. A spray of primarily red and green fire connected with Undyne's chest, sending her back in surprise as Izuku pushed through the pain and got to his feet. Watching as his fire burned the dry top layer of the bridge, Izuku decided not to take any chances and sent another fireball down where Undyne might have landed. Cradling his arm as he walked away from the confrontation, he felt the pressure of the spear give when it started dissolving. CRP. He pushed his hand against the wound to attempt to stop the bleeding, but the hole was too wide. Trying to remember the emergency first aid his mom taught him, he couldn't coordinate his movement well enough with the pain to take off and rummage through his bag. Falling to his knees, Izuku watched the BLD pool and drip from the planks as he pinned his last hopes on his magic. Planning to at least stop the bleeding by cauterizing the wound with fire, he engulfed his hand in magic green-red flames and held his finger into the wound, expecting agony. Not feeling the pain he expected, Izuku moved his hand to see a scar about the size of a coin in the middle of his arm. Feeling the drain of the magic, Izuku cut it as he ran his fingers over the mostly healed skin. It was tender, but far better than before. Looking over himself, Izuku took off his shirt and attempted to rinse the BLD off in the river below. Mostly succeeding, Izuku made his way through the grass, tired and most definitely traumatized from the experience. "Yo," Monster Kid greeted. "Have you seen Undyne around?" Izuku shook his head absent-mindedly, still frozen. "Ah, shucks. We'll see her somewhere else then." He cheered, running off. "You survived your first real fight. Though, are you still determined to continue?" Feeling the lingering pain from the encounter fade with the text, Izuku sat next to the echo flower in the room. The occasional squeaks that came from a flower gave him something to hold onto while he spiraled. He didn't think this was a game. Floey made sure of that, but this was so close. Feeling himself tremble, he held himself curled into the fetal position. Hugging his knees, he let the world fade around him. Why has he kept going? What is all this for? What will we get out of this? Most importantly, why was he here? Focusing on his breathing, he thought about what he wanted. He found it hard to keep going. Nobody believed in him. Nobody cared enough to help him besides his mother. But even then, He knew she couldn't support his dream, powerless. Why did he even click on this game in the first place? All of this was so messed up. Tears were streaming down his face. He stopped shivering. He didn't want to feel this way. More importantly, he didn't want others to feel this way. That was why he wanted to be a hero. He wanted to inspire the same feeling he got watching other heroes. He wanted hope for something better. This was terrifying and messed up. Thinking about it, who knows how many others are going through this? But if I want to be a hero, I would at least face danger or something like this. He didn't know what else to do but to continue. Taking the time to focus on his breathing and calm himself, he got up. His clothes were dry and slightly stained with his BLD. But he needed to focus. All the other people who might be in his situation. He was going to finish this to save them. Finally feeling like he could continue, he walked into the next room. "Hey kid," Sans greeted. Izuku waved in greeting, walking off with a serious expression, finding the chest from snowed in. Here, he decided to offload his bag, keeping only some food, his notebook, and the first aid kit with him. "I hope all my stuff is still here in the next area." Finding the ice cream salesman and taking one on the go, he was entranced by the sights he saw along the path. The water glowed the same color as the plants, making the path dark. Passing some echo flowers, he heard a passing conversation. "So, don't you have any wishes you want to make?" "Just one, but it's kind of stupid." Ring, ring, ring. Picking up the phone and seeing Papyrus's number, he was conflicted on whether to answer. Deciding to block him if he betrayed him, he accepted it. "Hello, Izuku. Remember when I asked you about the clothes you're wearing? Well, the friend who wanted to know her opinion of you is very murdery, but I bet you already knew that. Sorry, but because you knew that I told her you were wearing a scarf with abs on it. Knowing that someone like you could never miss my obvious hints, you would obviously change your clothes. This way, you're safe, and I didn't lie. To Undyne, no betrayal anywhere. Being friends with everyone dash. Sigh, this is getting pretty difficult. I just wish everybody could be happy. I'll talk to you later." Click. Looking at the phone in disbelief at the sheer coincidence, Izuku hung up and decided that it was too late now. "Don't say that, come on. I promise I won't laugh." He heard. Finally getting back on solid ground, Izuku walked to a new glyph. The power to take their souls. This is the power that the humans feared. Their souls, he thought, clutching his chest. That makes sense. Humans don't have a good history with unknown dangers. Made worse after the dawn of quirks. Entering a room with a large body of water surrounding a small path, Izuku got a bad feeling. As he walked, he paid close attention to the water. Hearing splashes periodically, Izuku sped up with every sound. Seeing tentacles start emerging, Izuku booked it down the path. Wait. He heard a pleading voice. Hearing the desperation, Izuku reluctantly turned around, coming face to face with a giant monster with the head shape and color of a yellow onion. "Hey there, I'm Onion-san. That's Onion-san you hear?" Izuku waved awkwardly in greeting. "Hi, I'm Izuku. I'm kinda in a hurry, so dash." Onion-san got super depressed in an instant. "Oh, you're leaving? That's fine. Just fine for Onion-san. Obviously, you're just visiting." Feeling the second-hand embarrassment radiating from the monster, Izuku started walking away. Getting closer to the exit, Onion-san couldn't help talking. "The water is shallow here, but hey, at least I'm not in some cramped aquarium, like all my friends." The silence was suffocating as Izuku tried not to cringe or show any emotion at the statement. "The aquarium's full anyway, so even if I wanted to, still it's okay. Undyne will fix everything. Once we get to the surface, I'll live in the ocean, you hear?" Cringing at what Undyne was fixing the situation meant Izuku sped up his walk, trying not to think about the implications. Finally, at the exit, Izuku sighed in relief. This marks the end of part 1 of What If Deku Was Trapped Inside Undertale's Underground. A big thanks to LastDreamrr for granting the permission to feature this amazing fanfiction. Please like the video and subscribe to Deku Universe for more interesting stories. Thank you and see you soon.